Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Warrant and Finance Committee meeting for April 10th, 2023. First thing on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Leslie and Margarita couldn't make it tonight. We won't be voting on anything, so we won't need to appoint any alternates or anything. And the purpose of this meeting tonight is continue with a donation, social services.
Could we do this, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Make a motion to approve the minutes. April 3rd, 2023.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'll start up where I left off. These are the remaining ones that we asked to come before us. I don't know if there's other organizations that have requested. We'll have to wait and see what the Board of Selectmen put forward. We're saying that the very first one to come up is AWA. John? Yeah, come on, you want to come up, sit at the chair, be a little more comfortable than
Thank you.
standing?
Mind the thumbtacks.
I brought a couple summary reports from the year. I didn't bring enough, but if I can just hand them out
Yeah.
to a couple people so you can
Yeah.
pass them around and just get a
Yeah.
glimpse at some of the stats from our past years. Do you want me to speak into the microphone?
Yeah, it'll pick you up fine,
Okay,
guy.
great.
Should anyway.
Should I get started or?
Yeah, just tell us about what you guys do and a little bit.
Sure. So my name's John Balanoff. I'm the Executive Director of the Acton Wakefield Watersheds Alliance. Been there since 2019. Is there anyone on the committee that's not familiar with the organization or the?
Everybody but me.
You're the only one that is familiar?
Yes.
Okay, so just a quick summary of what we do then. So we're an environmental nonprofit. It's been around since 2005. Our primary focus is helping the community maintain water quality on the lakes, rivers, and streams in Acton and Wakefield and some of the other surrounding towns, primarily on the lakes in Acton and Wakefield though. We do this for a variety of reasons. Obviously, we all like having clean lakes. We swim and fish and enjoy the lakes. But there's also social reasons and economic reasons, such as, we're a very tourism-based community. And the lakes are a driver for tourism, and it's also a driver for tax income for the towns in the form of property value, and all that sort of tied to water quality. When lakes are clean, everyone uses them more. As if they go downhill over time in water quality, you can lose some of that revenue and some of that, the recreational enjoyment of the lakes. So for all those reasons, we've been doing this since 2005 to work with the community in a variety of ways to help keep the lakes clean. The primary way we do that is we offer free technical assistance to homeowners around the lakes to deal with stormwater erosion and runoff, because that's sort of like the main source of pollution for our lakes. So I will go out and do landscape designs for homeowners to deal with stormwater pollution, and then we hire a group of local kids every year. Our Youth Conservation Corps program is sort of our flagship program. We'll hire high school age kids to install these landscaping designs for homeowners, in which homeowners, we provide the labor for free, and homeowners purchase the mulch and stones and plants and whatever they need for the project. We also do watershed surveys with lake associations in the area to identify pollution sources, and we apply for grants, federal and state grants, to bring money into the community to do some of these larger stormwater erosion projects to help replace failing septic systems and update roads and anything that's necessary to fix water quality issues around the lakes. And then in the winter time, we offer school programs, middle school science programs to the Acton Elementary School and the Wakefield Paul School. So we'll do well water testing for kids, and we do biomonitoring. We do a nice field trip to the Province Lake Golf Course with the with the sixth graders. We teach them about invasive species and watersheds and things like that. So we're sort of year-round focused on education outreach and then sort of bringing that technical and scientific knowledge to the community to deal with the variety of water quality issues that we face. So that's a brief overview of what we do in the community. I can go into any of those in more detail if anybody's curious. The reason that I'm here tonight to request more, so you guys have already been supporting us very generously for longer than I've been here, I think at least 10 years, if not longer. The reason that I'm asking for additional funds tonight is essentially because the demand for the programs we offer has increased in the last couple of years. That's for several different reasons. Primarily, the reasons are that there's more people using the lakes. People have moved up here full-time. There's more people just coming and using the lakes recreationally as day visitors, and then that's sort of coincided with an increase in high-intensity rain events in the last couple of years has caused more erosion, so more people notice these issues. So, you know, my phone's been ringing off the hook for several years now with demand for these programs, and juggling those with the school programs and such has become a little bit of a challenge in recent years. So basically last year I spoke with our board and we decided to hire a program coordinator. So we hired a full-time program coordinator to implement the YCC program and the school programs, you know, with my supervision, so that we can basically more efficiently implement the programs that we've been implementing for many years and expand into, you know, to basically offer more programs. So I'm trying to get more grants from more of these federal grants and state grants into the community to solve more of these sort of more complicated erosion issues and stormwater issues, trying to increase our septic cost share program to fix outdated septic systems that are around the lake, which also cause water quality issues. And I'd like to expand our school programs as well to go into, you know, to always have programs for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and hopefully the 4th graders. We have some stuff we could do as well if we had the capacity. So we did hire this person in January, full-time. So we now have 2 full-time people on staff. And essentially, the increase in funds I'm requesting from the town of Acton will cover approximately 25% of the salary of this new person, and I'm gonna get the rest from other sources, obviously. Ask for money from other towns, we fundraise from donors. We have a couple private foundations we apply to for funds, so basically I'm just asking the town to continue supporting us as you've done for many years already, just in a slightly larger capacity to address the growing need of our services and our programs in the region.
John, what's the increase from this year to?
I asked for an additional 9,000 this year.
I was thinking last year was 11, but I didn't want to say that.
Yeah, so you guys gave us 10 for a long time. Last year I asked for 11, and this year I asked for 20, which is a big jump. And I did ask for similar increases in the town of Wakefield as well. You know, basically the way it works out, we do about 2/3 of the work we do in Wakefield and 1/3 of the work we do in Acton. So I always kind of make the asks mirror that. So we ask for, you know, basically of the total amount we ask for towns, it's about 1/3 of it I request from Acton and 2/3 from Wakefield.
So the ask this year is
20.
20?
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah, 20,000 from Acton.
What percentage or how much comes from grants or federal money, apart from what Acton and Wakefield?
That's all on the back of this, Joe?
Yeah.
I'm reading it now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's about, I mean,
Really defined. Okay.
it varies year to year. In general, it goes between 30 and 40% of our budget is from those federal grants. And
Now, you
then-
have to write grants every year?
Yeah, so that's usually in the winter time while I'm doing the school programming and such. I'm also applying for those grants, and then you also have to do grant reporting, and you have to track match funds and stuff like that, so they require semi-annual reporting on the grants and then final reports, so that takes up a good chunk of time to get those federal dollars, but
Now, the school funding or for
the school program.
the teaching, is that part of the school physical stuff, or do you have them take in another spot and you're teaching them about erosion and water control and?
Yeah, so it's not tied in with the school budget at all, so we raise, you know, we fund the school program work that we do just with individual donations and a couple, there's some like education-based.
So where would you school them physically on the?
In the classroom for the most part, so we.
I mean, would you go to like Acton School or Wakefield School, Paul
Yep.
School?
Yep, so we go into like the Acton Elementary School. I work with Dave Cody, he's the middle school science teacher there. And he's been having us in the classroom for, 12 or 13 years, I think. So we have different programs with the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And it's usually right in class, so I'll teach, or in this case, the program coordinator now would be teaching, Dave would either teach with us or just supervise or volunteer while we're doing this. And it's usually like a lecture and then like an actual science experiment or water quality testing or something like that. And then we do one field trip with the 6th graders to the golf course too.
Are you a full-time employee yourself?
Yes, I'm
Are
full-time.
you a 40-hour?
Yep.
Okay. I have one question, just out of curiosity. Down in Province Lake, you installed some slips or seedling, I'm not sure what they were. Were they rooted cuttings or what was the?
Right on Bonnyman Road
What was
there?
the logic behind?
Yeah. Yep.
They were gonna root themselves or?
Yeah, so that's a new, not new, but it's sort of a new project for us. It's called live staking. And that was funded by one of those federal 319 grants that we got. So they, when we apply for the 319 grant, they'll say, we'll give you so much money for YCC, so much money for this and that, and then they'll usually give you money for one big sort of restoration project. So they gave us about $5,000 to do that installation, which is called live staking. So the idea is you take dormant willow branches.
Was it a dormant willow? Okay.
Yeah, we got them from a nursery. Well, we got them from a company a landscaping company in New Hampshire, but I think they got them from a nursery in Maine. But
Okay, so they were just branches?
yeah, they're just willow branches. So willows are very aggressive growing plants.
So was it done in sand or in humus of any sort or?
It is sand right there, but when you dig down, there's like more loam underneath. So it's a common practice on stream shorelines.
Oh, I was curious because I'd like to try and see if I could do it. It's like I'm all forever growing stuff.
Yeah, give me a call, I'll help out.
So it's no particular type of willow, though? You don't have any variety? Or?
Pretty much, well, I think we used black willow, yeah.
Black willow.
That's the most common, but.
Now, have you gone back to check and see how successful it was? Or?
I went back the other day and I was still under 3 feet of snow, so
Okay.
I'm not sure yet. And they do take, you probably won't see a lot of vegetative growth for the first year because they root first.
You have to root it, yeah.
So it's gonna have to convince people that there's still a chance that it's working, and they're gonna have to wait maybe a year or two to actually see it working. But they were having pretty terrible erosion on the road there, so.
Is there any one particular lake that's in more of jeopardy of
In Acton specifically?
And both of them, well, they're all interrelated, but.
Yeah, so I mean, several of the lakes, Province Lake is an example of one that's already experiencing regular cyanobacteria blooms. That's like a type of bacteria that used to be called blue-green algae, so it looks like a slimy blue-green paint sometimes. Some of the lakes get that in some capacity. I think Province gets the most of those. And that's a result of too much, when you have this excess stormwater getting in, it brings sediment and it brings phosphorus in the sediment into it. And that's sort of what feeds the algae.
How are you proposing to remedy that?
Yeah, so the nice thing about the lakes in Acton is that they're still very high water quality. And so like the work we're doing right now is preventative, which is what's so great, because it's so much easier to do work to prevent problems than to solve problems. And that's why Great East Lake is actually on a high priority waters list. So they give grant funding to folks or lakes that are on that list, specifically to keep the water quality the way it is. Because even the state and even the EPA considers it an investment in water quality to give funds to do these projects to keep the water clean.
Getting back to Province Lake, so what would you do about that bacteria? Is there anything you can do about it?
Just the same thing, so that banks try as best as you can to solve all the erosion problems around the lake.
Can you remove any of that bacteria from the surface water?
You can't remove it, no, because you try to pick it up and it just disappears in your hand. So all you can do is cut off the food source, and the food source basically comes from the erosion. So it can't be removed, but it does go away though. The bacteria, it's a bloom, right? So it blooms and then it's there for, it could be a couple days, it could be weeks, it could be a month, and then it will die off. So it's sort of like a cyclical thing. But when it's there, it has the potential to be toxic. It's not just like an aesthetic thing. It can be harmful to animals and children if it's ingested. It can hurt your skin. So they usually put up advisories like don't swim when you see cyanobacteria and things like that. So we want to cut the food source off
Oh,
for that.
is this
so it
another
doesn't
culvert
happen
as
often.
opposed to milfoil? Milfoil's a whole different,
Oh, totally different.
okay.
Milfoil's an invasive species, so that, excuse me. I know I'm rambling on here, but. So an invasive species like milfoil, that gets into the lake. If it's like on a boat motor or it's stuck to a bottom of a boat or a trailer, and that's just a plant, it's different than bacteria, it's like microscopic and it forms these huge colony blooms, but milfoil itself is a plant and that can just reproduce really quickly. It's aggressive. So that's something that can be removed, but it grows so aggressively that it can grow faster than you can remove it, and it takes a lot of effort to get it out.
Apart from those two, what other parasites do you have to be cognizant of?
Yep, there is a pretty long list of potential invasive species in New Hampshire. Some lakes have species like brittle naiad, Chinese mystery snail, Asian clam. But the lakes in these towns pretty much only, milfoil is the only concern. I know that there's milfoil in Balch Lake and Bellow Lake. Don't believe that there's milfoil in none of the lakes that I work in Acton anyway. I'm not sure about all the lakes, but really milfoil is the main concern for invasives in our area. And then just the cyanobacteria is a growing concern on, honestly, lakes. It's been like a global issue lately, so we're not alone in that. Environmental.
So you think that your programs, you're making progress around,
I think we're making progress, and I think it really is just about maintaining, like keeping it in the conversation. So it's the kind of thing where you always have to be going 50 miles, 60 miles an hour just to stay where you are. And if you want to, if you wanted to reverse an environmental issue, you'd have to go even farther. But just always making sure that's why we like to teach kids about it. Kids tell their parents, their future voters, decision makers, and we do these free site visits for homeowners. So you just have to always make sure that, whenever people make a decision on their property or in town, if they have the environmental implications in mind, then they're making an informed decision. So just as much as actually doing things on the ground, we're also trying to always make it sort of a topic, a conversation point in the community. Hopefully, because we are just one small organization, we can't address every erosion issue in both towns. It's not possible. Our YCC crew does 20 projects a year on properties, which is really impressive for us, but there's easily, hundreds and hundreds of properties that do need help, that do need erosion control and camp roads and things like that. So we need to make sure that we're doing the outreach so that people will maybe address it themselves or just, think twice about a way they build something or a way they do something on their property to keep that in mind, basically.
Anybody else have something?
Yeah. Go ahead, Carter.
Oh, okay. On the financial report here, and you were just talking about grants, federal grants. On your grant line there, you have both public and private. Were you just talking about the public as federal, or
Yeah,
also
yes.
state grants included in that, or?
The state, so we consider the state grants to be public. So we don't apply to grants directly from the federal government. The way it works is the EPA delegates money to the states.
Right, and then
we apply
reallocate
for the
it.
money from the states. So that's, everything that's on the budget under public grants is those state grants, yes.
Okay.
And then private is basically we have a couple foundations that will give us funds, and then we have individual donors as well.
All right, and then earlier you had mentioned that you almost have a 1/3, 2/3 split between the demand. Is that the demand based on cost of projects, or is that based on the number of projects?
Number, for the most
Number
part.
of projects? Okay.
Yep, and it works out that it's about, of all the lakes we work with, about 2/3 of the shoreline in terms of miles is in Wakefield and 1/3 in Acton. So it tends to just kind of balance out that we do about 1/3 of our work in Acton.
Okay.
Yep.
I heard you mention snails.
Yeah.
That's the green, Chinese.
They're referred to as Chinese mystery snails.
Mystery snails, yeah. Square Pond, we now have our own scuba team that
For
goes out.
removal?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty much once you have an invasive species, in most cases, the only solution is physical removal. There's some
hundreds of
instances.
pounds.
Yeah, it's wild. And they just keep multiplying. So, I mean, the thing about an invasive species is that it's from a different environment. It might have come here in a ballast water in a ship from across the ocean. So it's used to
I
a
haven't
climate.
seen
a
any
different climate.
battleships in Square lately, but,
No, that's true. But
not really,
they make it to one lake or up like the Hudson River or something, and then someone takes a boat in there, gets in there, they take their boat somewhere else, and then it just kind of, it can
Oh,
spread.
yeah, and then they come visit the Grand Pond, Square Pond, I gotcha.
So, it's a bummer.
But I'm looking at this, from your, financial report from the end of last year, and you're actually basically doing three lakes in Acton are seeing, work that you all are doing?
Yep,
During that period of time?
yeah, we work on Great East and Wilson a lot, and then I think we did do a project on Loon Pond last year.
Yeah, Horn Pond?
On Horn, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we did one on Loon in 2021, I think, and then,
Yeah. No, this tells me you're not making any money. You're going one year to the next, is that right? I'm reading this?
we have been netting some funds for the last couple of years, so that might be, I'd have to, I don't know if I have it with me, but yeah, no, financially, we've been raising,
The reason I asked is because you hired 2 more people.
yeah,
So-
oh, yeah, one more person, I'm the other
Oh,
one.
you're the other one, okay, so you've hired another person.
Yeah, so we did raise up, we got a significant chunk of, when COVID hit, it had the opposite effect we expected it to, and people started donating a little more to our organization. I think it's just because more people were around using the lakes and stuff, so once we sort of built up those funds, we realized that we should do something with them, obviously, and then hire the second person. So we definitely have the financial structure to support the new person.
Well, good, because I will say this after asking these questions. Your kids worked on my property about 10 years ago. And I live on the low side, on Square Pond on this, going straight all the way up the H Road, and the water comes all the way down, goes into my driveway. I have a 15-foot drop, 3 culverts in it, and everything goes right into Square. And your kids came in and they did a magnificent job.
I'm not
They
sure,
did.
not sure if I can take credit or not, because I could have been Acton Chapley YCC. There's
Yeah.
another YCC that works on Square Pond,
Yeah,
so I'm not sure which group it was at the time, but
well,
I'm glad to hear it.
they did a great job,
Yeah.
anyway.
Bill, you have something?
No, sir.
Ray?
Yes, I was wondering, has your board of, selectmen, or your board met so far to do a proposed budget for 23-24? Because I see 22, you're requesting funds for the upcoming 23-24, but I don't see any proposed budget for that year.
Yeah, no, I didn't provide a proposed budget to you guys. We did approve a budget so we go by the calendar year. Our budget's January to December, so we did approve the budget for 2023 this year. But we haven't yet done a 2024 budget yet.
Okay, so all the figures that we have here are from 22.
Yep, and that was just to give you a sense of our finances in general. So the funds I'm requesting for this year wouldn't be reflected on that.
Okay, so you said that, last year you requested from Acton 11,000.
Yes.
And looking at, so 20,000, was that from your,
It's
oh no, that's
that's
your
a
private.
comment. Yeah,
Okay, so you had a budget of $85,000.
yep.
Did you acquire the 85,000 and have only spent 37,200?
Let me see.
Cause here's your year-to-date.
Yeah, so yes, the public grants, so that discrepancy, I'm glad you actually pointed that out. So this is tied in with the federal grants that we get. So those grants are 2 and sometimes 3-year grants. So sometimes we will get the money up front and not spend it all in that year. So it depends on how long it takes to do the project. So that's not reflective of just the towns. It's a little confusing because sometimes they'll like front load the public grants, and then we have to do the projects, and they don't always fall in the calendar year that you receive the money in.
Okay, so then, just wondering if you did get what you budgeted?
Yes.
So then you would have an excess of $47,000. Was that factored into the 23 budget?
Yes, yep. And then it ends up getting spent, and then sometimes it looks like a big loss in the next year because you spend all that money, but you didn't get it again. So the public grants, it does vary pretty significantly on our actual budget when you see it, but it levels out over the course of like 2 to 3 years usually.
Okay, so I see that over the course of 17 years that your organization has been in existence.
Just about, yep.
Okay. You've had, directly served over 500 residents.
Yep.
So that averages out 12.5 residents per year. All right?
Okay.
Is there any cost other than them providing the materials,
For the,
for any of the larger projects that you guys do? See, you have a subcontract line here.
yeah, we don't do subcontract anymore. That was the expenses of the grant. So one of the programs we do is a septic cost share program. So we'll get funding from the state, and then we'll basically direct that directly to a homeowner that's replacing a failed septic system on the lake.
So you don't do that anymore?
We do still do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, is there a charge to the, residents that you do that for?
No, other than, so they're just, for the septic system program, they're responsible for going through the whole process of getting a septic design, a septic installation. So they might end up spending like 20 grand on their septic system. And
So what
then
is it that you guys do for that?
we give them about $5,000 towards that. So it's just a cost share program.
Okay, do you guys work with Gelia?
Yep.
Okay, and do you guys do any sharing of money or any of that? I mean, because I know that they have quite a bit of money.
Yeah, Gelia donates to our organization, and we work with Lake Associates. So usually when we apply for one of these EPA grants, there's a match requirement for the grant. So there'll be a total cost for the project, and they'll give us 60% of that, and they'll expect you to come up with 40% of that. And so that comes from our organization. We count any of the money that, like when the homeowners buy the materials, we count that towards match for the grant. And then if we're doing a project on a camp road and a road association puts money towards it, we'll count that as match grant. And then if the lake association has any stake in the project, then they'll put money towards it, and that counts towards match as well. So there are some instances where the lake associations will contribute, or a road association will contribute directly to a project. And they also donate to us so that we can implement the YCC program, whether or not we get a grant, so we like to be able to do the program no matter what, whether those grants are coming in or not, so.
So is there a reason why we didn't get a 2023, budget?
I think I gave,
As you said that the board has already met.
yes, so we passed it, I sent this on February 16th, and I don't think we had approved the 2023 budget at that time, so I'd be happy to provide one, but that's just because I think it hadn't been approved by the board at that time.
You think that would be something that would be, beneficial for us to see?
Well, I mean, it's up to the committee, when they send out these requests, usually they're due by the end of January or something like that. The town sets that date, and, he wants to send it to the Warrant and Finance Committee, that'd be great. But I understand, this is the information he had really when the town of Acton wanted the information. And so the new information didn't exist. Like John said, he can email it, to Jennifer. And Jennifer can fast forward it to the Warrant and Finance Committee.
I think that would be a good idea.
All it is pushing a
Just my
button.
personal opinion.
Yeah, all it is pushing a button.
Yeah, if it's available, I think it would be beneficial.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely available now. It's been since approved by the
Yeah,
board,
so
so.
you'll do that.
Yep, absolutely.
The only other, do you have anything else, Ray?
No, not at the moment.
First, I want to say I totally support this $20,000. But one thing that I've had a concern about for many years, and I see no data here about it, is the Salmon Falls River. And that, from my experience, has been kind of neglected compared to the lakes. I understand the Salmon Falls River doesn't draw the money that the lake property does.
Yeah.
So I understand why the lake properties are first. But the deterioration of the wildlife and other things in the Salmon Falls River, in my almost 69 years of living on it, is huge. Whether it's insects, or fish, or frogs, bullfrogs, it is just the habitat, what used to live there and what lives there now. I have no idea what the issue is. Not you.
Yeah.
But I know that it's very detrimental what has happened to that Salmon Falls River where it comes out of Horns Pond.
So downstream of Horn Pond?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And, but every year I never see anything on that body of water that's been addressed.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't believe we've done any projects on the river itself at least since I've been here. And
Yeah,
part of our mission is
they
lakes,
did
rivers,
before.
and streams, so it's definitely, I'm glad you brought it to my attention, because I haven't focused there recently, but.
It's a huge wildlife habitat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of my goals with having this program coordinator is that, every year it's a summer is like an 8-week scramble, and it's a race to the finish. And I'm hoping that if I have someone to help implement that program, it'll give me sort of the breathing room to focus on these exterior issues that go unnoticed,
Like
year
I
to
said,
year.
I don't know why there's so few turtles now.
Yeah.
Compared to what there used to be.
Yeah.
I'm not, all I know is they aren't there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Appreciate it.
There's no decline in the snapping turtles, but there is in the sun turtles.
They're pretty resilient.
They're pretty resilient.
Yeah.
They don't like to stay out of my yard when they lay in their eggs. But anyway, that's all I got to say.
One other question,
Thank you.
just a clarification, because maybe I heard wrong, because my ears are getting old. Did you say 12 per year, Ray?
12.5 per year over a 17-year period.
I come up with a little bit better than 29
Really?
per year, yeah, I mean,
Well, I did a division by days instead of.
I didn't go by
17
days, it's 17 years, it's 500 projects, so it's actually, you did actually more than 12.
In terms of number of projects per year, or number of people per year, yeah.
Right, I just wanted to make sure you get credit for that.
Thank you, yeah, I didn't bother to do the mental math when you said it.
And I also know that Iowa has been very helpful with some of the road association stuff around the lakes. And helping them get funding and, help them with the projects and giving,
With education.
yeah.
Yep, Linda was really instrumental in getting a lot of the grant funds into the road, the camp roads. I'm hoping that.
It's a great organization as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
Anybody
One
else?
question.
Okay, Ray.
Can you explain on the handout that you passed out, I see you have your YCC project and your technical assistance.
Yep.
On the Gradius Lake, you have more than 2.5 times of technical assistance.
Yeah.
Can you explain that, or just, what's the difference there?
So I think part of that is that just the sheer population of Great East Lake is higher than a lot of the other lakes that we work with, so I tend to get more calls from them in general. They're also, we've been doing, I think they're just probably the residents of Great East Lake are the most familiar with our programs, because they were sort of involved from the very beginning, so I don't know exactly why. I think it just seems to be on Great East Lake's radar, that the services that we offer.
So if I'm understanding correctly, it's basically the number of calls that you guys get for help from the residents versus the number of projects.
Yep, and that also probably coincides with the fact that we we do these watershed surveys every 10 years on the lakes. So we recruit 20 or 30 community members and a couple science experts to basically walk the whole shoreline and identify erosion issues. It's usually a big community effort with a lot of outreach involved. We send postcards to everybody on the lake. So we tend to see an influx in calls after that happens because the Lake Association and all are reaching out to everyone, letting them know. We send letters to everyone saying, oh, we found erosion, or oh, we didn't find any erosion. So we did that on Great East Lake for the first time in 11 years in 2021. So the following year, seeing an influx of calls from them would be expected. So it could have been from that.
Thank you.
Yep.
And what's the distribution of number of properties or residents around that have frontage on Great East Lake between Acton and Wakefield?
I don't know the number of properties offhand. I do know that there's more shoreline mileage in Wakefield.
Okay.
But I don't think there's as many houses, on the Wakefield side. I can't say for sure though.
Okay.
Okay, John?
Yeah, that brought up another
Thanks.
question.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
All right.
You said there's not the same amount of property, so is there any, properties that are owned by the towns that abut the lakes?
There's a couple like the boat launch in Acton. I think Wakefield owns, I think Wakefield owns a boat launch on Great East as well. Yeah, and there's a couple other town-owned properties on the lakes, yeah.
Okay.
And
You
we-
guys assess those also? as far
Yes,
as
we do
runoff?
projects. We'll send them a letter if there's erosion from a watershed survey, and then if one of those has a serious erosion issue, you can get grant funding for those projects as well.
Okay.
But it's always a match thing, like we never fund 100% of a project. We ask, if it was a town property, we'd ask them to contribute 40% or something like that, so.
Okay. Thank you.
All set? All
Thank
set
you
now,
very
right?
much.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Good job.
Is there a process for, is the protocol for, approval? Are we pending? Do you want me to send the budget?
Yeah, just send the budget to
Jen?
to Jen,
Okay.
and she'll pass it on to us, and I'm not quite sure when we'll be making our recommendations on it, but
Okay.
our next meeting is in 2 weeks, and it's all gonna depend on what the selectmen do, what we have in front of us to move forward on.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, John.
So the quicker the better, in other words.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
The next on the agenda is ASYCC. Joe. You guys are both gonna come up, with another chair right there, so you can both sit down.
I'm Joe Boris, and I'm the treasurer of ASYCC. This is Kent Hockey, he's the director. And I did send some of these to, or drop them off here.
It must be right here in our packet, guy.
I don't know if I have enough for everybody here, so if anybody else wants.
Yes, sir. We'll tag team it.
So you got a pre-colored one, I don't know, we don't have a I don't have a pre-colored, it might be the same thing.
This,
I think that they made just copies of that, but must go ahead, give it
well,
give it to Joyce.
down there.
That's our annual report.
Okay.
It doesn't really have financial stuff in it, but it does have
Yeah,
statistics on our erosion control.
sure.
The boat launch inspection.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've got the 2022 financial here.
We also have probably a more updated budget. Didn't change a real lot, but I can send that also to Jen.
That would be great. That would be great.
Yeah, because we did a little revising the budget because last year our erosion control crew, we didn't have one because we couldn't get anybody.
Right.
And so this year we had to really kind of ramp up how much we pay the kids in
That-
order to even get them interested.
That's a big
So-
one.
That's the big thing.
So that impacted the budget for.
Kinda hard to get somebody for $15 an hour right now.
Did you get much of a
Rather not
reply?
work.
Right?
Did you get much of a response from the
We've gotten
job posting?
one job applicant, and I went to a job fair at Massabesic High School last Friday, and I must have handed out about 30 or 40 business cards. So hopefully there's some people that sounded interested that will get some high school students.
Did you, contact Sanford too?
We have. They are always slightly slow on
Yeah.
talking about jobs. And I think there's going to be a job fair there as well. The good news is this year, the woman that ran it, that works with veterans and knows our program director, Dave Burns, quite well. She works with Massabesic High on things like jobs and special needs kids and other
Sure.
things. And she also works at Sanford High. So I think
Yeah.
we're going to get a little bit better connection this year to talk to
Good.
Sanford High
I mean, that's
School.
where Acton kids go, so.
Right, yeah.
Maybe you could pull a few out of there, who knows?
Right, so, yeah, we're really, optimistic that we're gonna have a full program this year. We've got, 2 319 grants, one on Mousom Lake and one on Square Pond that are gonna finish up this year. So we have some projects that we definitely wanna get done to finish it off, because, the nice thing about it is that, the landowner gets, no cost for like a DEP grant.
Sure.
I mean, it's DEP permit. There's reimbursement of up to 50% for the cost of materials, and the labor's still free.
Sure.
And we have continued to do technical assistance visits.
Right, we did that
Even though
last
we didn't
year.
have a crew last year, we did about 40 some odd technical visits, and we could provide plans to the homeowners
Sure.
and get the permit for them. And just, they would have to find someone, or do it themselves, or
Right.
find someone to do it for them, a landscaper or a contractor.
Once again, you take Mousom and Square. You work at Loon Pond too.
Yes,
Yes, we do.
yeah, there's less projects at Moon Pond and some on Goose Pond that we do.
That's a lot of properties.
Yeah, I'm glad John got to talk first. His program is very good. We've been talking about working together, sharing resources when possible and stuff.
Sure.
He does a great job. He explained the YCC program quite well. We do
Yeah.
that, and we call it the erosion control crew, and then we do the courtesy boat inspections, which is probably the larger part of our program. It's the Square Pond and Mousom Lake boat launches are very active, especially Mousom Lake.
Right.
And they just keep getting busier since COVID.
Every year.
So we get between 8,000 and 9,000 inspections every year. We're one of the, I think there's 80,000, if I remember the numbers exactly, there's roughly 80,000 inspections in all of Maine at the different places where there are boat inspections. So we do like 1/10 of the
10%
state's
all of them.
inspections by ourselves.
That's a good program, no doubt about that.
7 days a week in the main season. So, yeah, we've been there.
They're around in some form from April to the end of October.
Yeah.
So like right now, if they haven't started already, they're gonna start probably this weekend,
Yeah,
and it's mostly weekends. And
Yeah,
then we go
until-
to 7 days a week by the time we get
Right
in May,
after Memorial Day, I think.
after Memorial Day.
Well, we just had ice out.
Yeah,
It's not
last
today, it's
Friday.
tomorrow.
Well, I don't know about Square, but Mousom, it just happened in the afternoon. I'm on the lake.
I'm on Square, and if there's a little thing floating, he's gonna be gone tomorrow.
Yeah, and the loons are back already, that's good.
The loons are back.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
Do you people get any federal or state money other than what you're getting from the Chaplain and Acton?
We've applied for the 319 grants I mentioned, and the majority of that money goes to the towns for the larger road construction projects, for non-point source type of projects. We get a little bit of reimbursement for our technical site visits on those 319 grants. And then the homeowners themselves get that good deal with the permitting being free. I think the DEP permit's now like $280 or so. It's gone way up from like 75 to 280. So we get a slight, bit of money from that, small amount compared to our whole budget. We apply for our own a Davis Foundation grant. We can get that every other year. We applied for it again this year. We got it in 2021 for the first time. That helps us a little bit. We have a golf tournament that's been very successful. It started, I'm guessing, in about 2003 or 2004. I remember Bill Sherman, who started up the ASYCC years and years ago, so they've made $150 in the first golf tournament. And now we gross about 25,000 and net about 17,000 on it. So it's about a third to fourth of our budget is this golf tournament.
What sort of erosion prevention methods are you using? Are you using like riprap, bark mulch, or are you using swales, diversion, or?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah. Does it vary from?
It just depends on the particular site and what it needs. There's you can put in the stone to have water sink in and not go into the lake. There's plenty of mulching that we do. Diverters, we use rubber razor. It's like old, conveyor belts that you can use to stick up and it'll bounce down if you roll a car over it, and it can divert the water off away from the lake. A lot of plantings are done. They're called BMPs, Best Management Practices. We do all the ones that we can. We don't use any heavy equipment. We do infiltration steps, but we're gonna slow down that a little bit because we had some projects that got to be too many, and they're valuable, but that's not our main focus either, just infiltration steps. So that's another one that can be done in a certain situation.
So just primarily Square Pond and Mousom that you're doing?
Yeah, and goose and loon, but those are the larger, populations, so those are the ones that we.
I mean, do you have access to like the kids for a program, or is this more, as far as the labor is concerned?
It's mostly high school kids.
Just mostly, kids that you hire much the same as
Yes, a very similar program to what AWA is, yeah.
It's very short. It's an 8-week
8-week
program,
season,
just
yeah.
because that's, as long as they're out of school or as long
You
as
get a couple of rainy
they're out of
weeks.
school for the summer.
And you lost it, yeah.
Yeah, and do occasionally hire, if we can find one. I put an application into Southern Maine Community College and the USM, trying to hire an intern kind of crew leader. That'd be a college-age student that can just have a little bit better, able to keep the crew on task and everything else. Otherwise, we have to have an adult there at all times, to take care of it. That can be valuable too. It's a win for the college student if you can get an internship out of it. He or she can get an internship out of it, and at the same time, just a little bit more leadership involved too.
I would assume you guys, I know you do, but I just want to bring it out there, work a lot in conjunction with York County Soil and Water on some of these projects.
Yes, I do, yeah.
They're a
The
big-
319 grants are definitely
big
deeply involved
influence,
because they
yeah.
administer the contracts. They sometimes lead us to additional projects to work on. We use them sometimes for just consultation on how should we handle this situation.
Professional help.
Yep.
You're aware of the culvert replacement that's going to go on?
At Square Pond? I've heard about it, haven't heard any final details. Is it gonna happen this year?
That all depends if they
All depends.
get the engineer
Yeah.
has done all their work. The selectmen are supposed to be sending it out to get bids on it.
Getting bids.
Yep.
There's a small window.
If it works out time-wise,
I-
it will be done this year.
Yeah, but I would suggest, because it will make a difference in your staffing, because the boat launch won't be
It
there.
won't be working if that, yeah, we had that
Until
happen for 1
October.
month before,
Okay.
where they
I mean,
redid the the launch.
Like you guys are there till October. It's gonna be shut down, because it has to be done by
Yep.
by end of September, or something like that. So, if you're working on anything, I might, suggest either a board meeting or get in touch with
Yes, we're,
somebody, because you could find yourself doing a lot of work.
yeah, we'll,
Right.
Pay
We have
close
we
attention.
have a couple of board members who actually live on West Shore Road, so they're pretty much kind of in tune
So
with
do
what's
I,
going
yeah.
on.
no, it's,
That's the road they drive down every.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so do I, every, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but, no, for what you do and how you do it, I wouldn't want you to be, pulling your hair out because we need more boat inspectors here, because, what's gonna happen in August or September if there isn't, whenever this happens, whether it's this year or next year,
Yep.
there will be a period of time
Shut it down, yeah.
Right.
that it's gonna be shut down.
Yep.
And that will make a difference in what you're paying people. That will make a difference in your budget. So I would keep my eye out for that.
Yep.
Just
The sooner we know, the better.
for the TV audience, to maybe help you guys, I don't know, it might hurt you, I don't know. How much are you offering, for the high school wages?
We decided on $15 an hour for the
15,
pay.
okay.
If they're returning, so we have that's for both new hires on either boat inspections or the erosion control crew. It's $15.50 for returning. Returning, and that's mostly the boat inspections. We have a seasoned crew there that has been around and is very
Sure.
knowledgeable about the plants they're looking for.
And this is also for any projects or whatever, will be like a different crew. I mean, they used to, I remember when Bill was still around, you had to do interviews and all this, and there was all kinds of high schoolers or whatever that were looking for the work. And, so having them wasn't a problem. I just, with the job market, what it is, I just hope you can find some people at that rate,
Yeah,
because I don't know.
We're optimistic.
Well, I think
It's the
we're.
first year it's ever
and
happened.
we'll have to adjust if we don't, because we really want to have a crew this year, the
Right.
erosion control crew this year. The CBIs are all set. We've got our, I think, a full crew. And most of them are returning, so they make a little bit more than that.
Sure.
But if need be, we'll have to adjust, and if we have to pay them more money, then we just have to
Right.
look at the boat inspectors, we gotta pay them more money.
Right, and if we
Because you
did
can't
find
pay
out that
somebody-
Square Pond's boat launch is shut down,
Well-
would we consider raising the rates to?
I just want to be clear that I'm not telling you what to pay your help. I'm just saying, there are people that watch us,
Yep.
and it's free advertisement.
Yep, appreciate that. yeah.
Hopefully, somebody will respond.
And our pay has gone, it's close to doubling now. 2016, I think we were paying about $7.50 an hour, and the minimum wage is about $7.50, and it's gone way up. It's good for the people getting the jobs and everything, but it's definitely put a, an
What's
impact
your
on our
age limit?
Age limit?
You want, starting age? Then I'm not looking for a job. I mean, 50,
You'd have to change your name though, from youth. Take that out.
no, I'd be taking it actually away from one of my neighbors. With working papers at 15 or
Yes,
something
with
like
a
that?
permit.
Is that what
That's
it
pretty
is?
simple to get, yeah.
With a work permit from the school? Yep, so even, grandparents who have their kids in the summer and they want something for them to do, here's your free advertising,
Yep. Yeah, we've done other things, considering trying to do a hybrid program of not hiring just for the ECC crew and just for the courtesy boat inspectors, but have a hybrid that they might work on both.
right?
Have a little bit more flexible hours, and it could, we're kind of looking into that as well, to see if we can come up with,
It's all about trying to get the employees.
Exactly.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's.
Charlie, you look like you're interested in something.
I'm trying to learn. And I
Okay.
know it's a slow process for me. Everyone seems to do their expense reports just a little different.
They're all custom.
Oh, yeah, they're custom, all right. And I noticed this one is 2022. But besides that issue, can you tell me why, I can sort of come up with a rationalization for the income, but why on the expense, when you have excess already budgeted and no real actual year-to-date expense, why do you put the difference in parentheses as if it's a deficit when it's not? Let's just go to the first page there where it's ASYCC events. You know, you budgeted 200, so I figured you would have that money allocated in your budget. But you actually have no year-to-date expenses, and you're showing it as a $200 deficit, the way I read that, when it's actually $200 excess. Because you haven't spent the funds yet. I mean, it goes through the whole thing like that, but that's an easy one to look at.
What you sent, a copy of it.
There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Page 1.
Get down by expense.
So anything that showed the actual and the budgeted that way would have the negative parentheses, which, right, if you look at these, there's a number of them.
Right, that's just, well, that's the way that we show it. That means that we didn't spend anything. The budget was 200 for the year. So we're
So you should still have
under
a
budget by $200 on that.
under budget as far as expenditure, but
Right.
But
you still have $200 on the book, so to me, it's,
Right.
I know what you're saying.
Yep, yep.
So there should be the 200 on the year-to-date.
No, it should, in my mind, it shouldn't have the parentheses.
Right, that always represents a negative.
All right.
Right, it always represents a deficit,
Right.
and it's not a deficit. So you agree, all right. So it's not just me then. As long as you agree and it's not just my head, all right.
Right, right. Well, because the same thing, like I guess it is a different way to look at it. Because if you look up at
In the revenue,
in the revenue, if it's less than what was, actually it's more,
see, like if you go to the, let's say the subtotal for revenue, the third line down, total budget was 46.2,
right,
and you've actually only received 45.1 as a revenue, so that's correct.
Yeah.
You're still under, so in parentheses there is correct, that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense down in the expense area.
Just for the record, Charlie loves to do this.
Yeah, I'm
He
just,
really does.
I'm just that kind of person.
Yeah.
There's always one in the group.
And I mean, that's standard accounting practices, so.
So I guess what Charlie's doing is just an observation.
and I can kind of see it that way, but I can also see it the other way, because parentheses, it's under budget. No matter which way you're looking at it, those two things are both.
If that's the definition you want to use, okay, as long as I understand where you're coming from.
Got anything else, Charlie?
No, that's it. Everything else looks good.
Bill?
No, that was one of my questions too, so that's
All
good.
right.
Charlie cleared that up.
Charlie cleared that one up,
I beat you to it? Oh, I'm sorry.
right?
You stole my
Actually,
word.
I do.
I knew it.
On your boat inspection program, how do you handle someone who's coming onto the lake? And thinking that they do an inspection before the boat goes in the lake, and then after it comes out, if
Both, yeah.
the person is still there, or
Yes.
whatever. So if somebody is coming onto the lake and they see that they have a milfoil or something, how is that handled? I mean, they don't have an authority to stop the people, I wouldn't think.
No, we did have a case of that, what was it, 2021? A big clump of milfoil was found on a boat before it got into the Mousen.
Okay.
It was taken off, the boat was thoroughly looked at further. It was off, they came from Lake Arrowhead. And the best that we can do is suggest looking it over even closer, getting as much as we can off of it, but we cannot stop them from going into the lake. That we're a courtesy boat inspector, so, and if they say, no, I don't want my boat inspected, we have to say, we just try to do education and do the inspections, but we have no authority to say you have to do an inspection. It would be nice if it was necessary to get in, but there's other programs out there that try to get boaters to clean their boats after they, go out of the lake and things like that. And in some places I know of that they do have a place where you can clean off your boat right there before you move on. I can't remember exactly where that is, but that's not available at any of our boat launches. But yeah, we don't have the authority to stop somebody. The best we can do is catch it, remove it, bag it, and check it. And we do take down, in that case, the boat license number, and so that could be passed on. But I think there are fines involved if you do introduce, invasives into another, water body. But
I'm glad you worked into my next question. So, do you work with whoever would be processing those fines?
Yes.
As far as, that would've been my idea, is to, you ask the person, okay, hey, you have some stuff here, clean it off. They're like, don't worry about it, it's my boat, get out of the way, type of situation. Well, you still have the license plate for that, and then reporting it to the proper authorities.
right, well, we have probably the best plant expert in the state, Dennis Roberge, is on Mousom. And he has been very helpful with us to, in that case in particular where, we thought it was invasive, we bagged it, thoroughly looked over the boat and everything. We got it to him very quickly, and he was really, happy that we caught that one, and he had that quickly taken for DNA samples. I don't know the rest of the process past that, but, the information was there to see what else could be done with it, but it was one that we caught ahead of going into the...
So any boat that's coming out of a lake that would have an invasive species on it, plant species, on it, you say, if it's pointed out and there's a cleanup area that they have, so you guys collect that and send it off, or?
Well, we just, we catch the boats coming out, and we also inspect the boats going in to our water bodies. If they find anything of any thought that it could be, troublesome, it's bagged, and then it's inspected by Dennis, or we used to have Marcia Letourneau, I think is, and I don't think she works on that any further with us any further, but, and then our own program director, Dave Burns, is very knowledgeable about it too, and he'll look it over too. If he finds anything that's collected, he'll be looking at it right away too.
Now, is that data shared with any other organizations?
I think it was sent to, the one that we caught that was invasive was sent to DEP. I'm sure they take it over from there. I'm not sure. Our program director could tell you more about that, another time to tell you exact further details on that, but.
Thank you.
Ray stimulated a couple questions for me.
What's that?
Ray stimulated a couple questions.
All right.
For the new hires, what sort of training or education program do you put them through before they actually get to the launch to do an inspection?
There's a training right at the beginning of the season. So it's like a I don't know, 2 or 3 hour training that our program directors, he's been our program director since, well, he was a boat inspector starting in 2014. I think he became the head of our CBI maybe 2016 or 2017, and he is very dedicated to it. So he gets good training. We have another smaller program, invasive plant patrols, and some of those courtesy boat inspectors get further training through Lake Stewards of Maine.
Okay.
So that's like almost an all-day program. I've been through that 2 or 3 times, and I still need to review it because it's so hard to see plants and identify them very well. And I've been on several of the plant patrols, and it's still difficult for me. We also work with another woman named Lori Callahan. Some of the lake associations, even sometimes private residents, have bought some of her time to go out and inspect sections of Mousom. And we have our plant patrol go with her to get further instruction on those plants. I usually go along. We have a couple other people that just are interested in doing it, and Square Pond has their own program run by Donna Rosenkrantz, and we've offered in the past, we haven't connected yet, but our plant patrols would like to continue going out with them as well if we get an opportunity to do, because it's a big body of water. It's hard to get volunteers. She's done a great job doing that, heading up a volunteer organization. That's hard to do.
Yep.
And the new hires, I mean, they're compensated during this training program, or, okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, just as, it's not
Right.
No, it's not a.
feeling like a punishment to have to go
It's not
to.
volunteer for
No,
us.
it's volunteer for us.
Right, no, but for them, I mean, they gotta need an incentive.
Yeah.
Next thing is there a, facilities or an ability to flush out jet skis? Because otherwise you don't really know what's in the pipes.
Not that we have at the launches. And the launch is actually owned by the state. I don't know if Square Pond, is that owned by the state?
is.
That's owned by the state.
Yeah.
So,
So you could be
We're not
introducing
supposed
stuff and there's no way to know. Someone could be bringing something in.
that's true, I mean, that, in that particular case, yes. Or even the,
I know the outboard, it's easy, you know, it's there, it's visible, but for a jet ski or something.
An IO
inboard,
is
outboard or
difficult,
something,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Those jet boats.
it would be hard to tell.
Yeah.
And then the other question that Ray touched on was, as far as fines, is that the Marine Patrol that you would be contacting, or what agency?
Would guess it's DEP that could level a fine. We've never gotten to that stage.
I doubt that they do unless it's something significant. I mean, it's costly and they look at cost benefit and.
I would assume, Charlie, more than likely it'd be the inland fisheries that would do
Yeah,
that.
inland fisheries.
They would, well, I'm just curious who you contact. You only send everything up to DEP and let them handle it from there?
We start with Dennis, and Dennis seems to know all the connections that, you know, we usually just go directly to Dennis as a starting point, that in my understanding. Our program director, Dave Burns, might have a better answer for you, but I'm just not familiar with that part of it. And
That'd be good to follow up,
if you wanted
reply on that.
to email
It's nothing to do
myself or
with.
on our website, we have the connections for our program director, Dave Burns. You could speak to him directly, and he'd answer any questions you have. It's right on our website, asycc.com.
Okay, Charlie?
You got it.
I would like just to say that this organization has brought Mousom back from the condition it was quite a few years ago. And you guys have done a great job, and most of it is volunteer. And I appreciate myself what you guys have done, and I, again, think this is money well spent. And I thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
thank you for your time.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job. Like I said in the beginning, I'm the only one that really had any history knowing what you guys have done and what you're doing and when it started and all that stuff. And so this year, a lot of the places we so-called donate to, the Warrant and Finance Committee wanted people to come in and have them explain it instead of me, because you guys do a lot better job than I do. Thank you very much for coming.
And you talk faster than Dennis does.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Okay.
Next, we have the Historical Society. Tracy Lavasa. Thank you for coming.
So I don't know if we're as well prepared. We weren't sure what to expect, but
Well, most people aren't when they come to a meeting that I'm running, so nobody knows what to expect.
This is the first time that we've been invited to one, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
What
And
our
again,
predecessors did before us.
years ago, so that people do have a little understanding, the Historical Society didn't ask for any money. And when the time came that the insurance company said, you can't use that building anymore, and they shut it down, and the Historical Society, I think, asked for $1,000 that very first year from Acton and Shapley, because the building was in disrepair. And I think the first year, Acton cut it to 500. And I was a proponent of leaving it at 1,000. And so it ended up being 1,000 for quite a while. And I do know that the building itself has been very well upgraded, and it's being well maintained, the new roof, the wiring, a lot, and by a bunch of volunteers. I think you guys have done a great job. And with that being said, unless you have some big opening speech that you wanted to, everybody has the paperwork from the Historical Society, and I think we can just go into if anybody has any questions on what you do and why. Go ahead, Ray. I can see it in your eyes.
What do you do? I mean,
Okay, hold on.
One at a time.
Hold on. Ray,
Yes.
ask a question.
How old is the Historical Society building?
The building itself was built as a schoolhouse in 1930. And it was closed down in about 1950 when they made the current Shapley Memorial School. So they consolidated all those little one-room schoolhouses to make the Acton School and the Shapley School. They came out about the same time.
Yeah, 57 was Acton, so I
Yeah.
assume it was
And
probably
they
the
looked
same as
almost
Shapley.
exactly alike, so.
So is it on the
Same
National
blueprint.
Registry?
It is not.
It's not.
Okay. So then you won't have any issues with painting it whatever color you want?
That is correct.
Which we are doing. That is our next step. Yep.
I'm done for now.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
What's the relationship of the Acton Shapley Historic Society to the Lincoln School? Are you overseers, or are you?
Good
We're
question.
expecting.
We were expecting that.
So, Dick Neal is part of our board. Dick is very much interested in the Lincoln School. I want to restore and save every old building. It's obviously not possible to do all of it, but as you said earlier, you mentioned insurance. So we did the numbers today just to see where we're at. And with what we asked between Shapley and Acton, we're $300 ahead of the game, and we spend, $5, $6, $7, sometimes $20,000 a year, which we raise to volunteer, just doing different things, fundraisers and so on. But Dick's been trying to get us to take control of the Lincoln School. I've been wanting to come here as a side project to find out what really is happening, what's going on. We told Dick we really can't do anything with that building till we know that it's fully insured and safe and so on. So that's where we left it. I was supposed to come here and meet with you all with Dick, but he's yet brought me.
And with that being said, the Historical Society really has no authority to do anything with that building until they're asked by the town of Acton to help with it.
Right, that's correct.
We have raised funds for it, though. We do have some funds hidden in our coffers. Dick wrote a book, sold a book, so we've
Right.
kept that money aside for it. It's not that much, but
Right.
we have some.
So,
If we
So
go
what have
back
you-
just a moment,
go ahead.
going back in the minutes of our meetings before we became members of the society, I wanted to know what the verbiage was. What exactly did they say? And the board at that time agreed that they would help to restore the building. There was no money allotted at that point. It was just an agreement the board members had agreed to. And with that, being that we were new, we had no idea who owned the building. And once we found out that we did not own the building, we had to find out if the building was even insured. There were just a lot of things that needed to be answered before we even said, okay, we'll help. So with that, we know that we can help, but we need to go through the proper channels. Since the town owns the building, all we can do is get your permission, And then once we've gotten your permission, then all we can do really is give you advice. You know, you can do this, it's gonna cost you that. We should do this, it's gonna cost you that. But we're not gonna say, you know, the roof needs to be mended, it's $5,000, we'll take that. You take the next thing that comes up.
I appreciate what you're saying, because if somebody wanted to remember back a few meetings ago, what she said was my explanation of where we were with the Lincoln School when it came to the Historical Society, because I knew that they would help and assist, and I knew if they would help raise money to fix it or do whatever, that is on the National Register. And so we all know what the restrictions are. And I said the town has to go to them and ask them to do it. That's just, and nobody has done that. A citizen has, but the town itself has not made that request.
What have you done to the building?
To the Lincoln School?
Yeah,
Nothing.
Nothing, absolutely,
Nothing,
because
okay.
as far as we know, we don't even have
I think
authority
that-
or permission to even walk on the property.
I think the confusion was that we gave money years ago with the intent, or perhaps a misunderstanding or understanding that your historical society was going to renovate or improve the school as it was. And then we heard a little bits about the insurance, and then Mr. Neal made a few statements here and there, and so what we're saying is, we gave you money assuming that this was going for the Lincoln School, but now nothing's been done with that particular money on the Lincoln School. So,
Would you happen to have any
I-
records of
Yeah.
what those funds were?
well, we're gonna look back, I think,
No.
yeah.
Please do so,
Yes.
because
All right,
we
it-
keep being told that as well, but we don't have any records that were.
It never was.
Yeah, and I've gone through the minutes
It
since
never
the
was.
very
Okay.
first
To the
minutes.
You've got
I
it
spent a
then.
whole winter going through
Yeah.
all the minutes that were available at the Historical Society, and they go back to day one. And I did not see any letter from us to you
It was
or
a-
vice versa
Yeah.
stating that
It was
information at
completely a
all.
misunderstanding.
Right.
I mean, it's unfortunate if there's a letter that exists,
There isn't.
someone needs to produce it, otherwise we don't have that precedence.
So are you people interested in perhaps doing something with the Lincoln School, and could
Yeah,
you,
we have volunteers that are,
could you
that
put
would-
together a proposal so that we as taxpayers could look it over and see?
no, absolutely.
And what your
Well,
ideas are?
the thing is, Joe,
It's a little.
we don't have the
purview.
authority, to ask you guys to do this. Once again, it has to come from.
Right, it would have to come from us, and we've
Right.
told Mr. Neal, come to a town meeting, get permission to
Yeah.
go on the property, so that 2 or 3 of you can go on there with a list and get your honey-do list ready and say, this is what needs to be, should be.
Yeah.
Prioritize it, because we have no idea until we go in there how much needs to be done. It could be as little as, you know, painting and fixing the foundation. It could be as big as you got carpenter ants and now your framework is
Right.
Right.
all rotten.
So I guess, with that being said,
For me.
the Lincoln School, at this point, I'm glad you guys came, is a dead issue until, as far as the Historical Society is concerned, unless the town of Acton approaches you and wants your help.
I have a
Selectman.
question first.
Go ahead.
If memory serves me correctly, I do believe that you had made a statement that you had put money aside, or you had a small fund.
We have a
for
small
that.
fund from
So
Dick's books,
Is
correct.
that a line item specifically for that?
It's
Yes, it
earmarked
is.
for the
It's
school.
completely separate, so we
Okay,
don't touch
and
it.
that's reflected in your budget?
No.
No, it won't be in the budget.
It wouldn't be in their
No,
budget.
no, it's just,
That's
it's just
in
money
our-
that we
it's
keep
in our
that I don't
books.
use for anything.
That's just something they chose to do, right?
I have a question, aside from the Lincoln School, because you are the Historical Society, what else is there in your great tomb of, this is the history of Acton Shapley.
Who here knows about the bear?
Oh, God.
From
I know about the,
Not.
I know,
This is not the right town.
No, I know.
I know about the Fire of 47.
Yep.
I went and I saw that whole program there, and you guys did a
Well, I'm sorry,
marvelous job.
Shapley, but you missed the
But it-
Ghost of Shapley plane.
But, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
I understand you
We
had
did have
some
the Acton
today.
Silver Mines.
Yeah.
Well, we have the Acton Silver Mines.
We
I
have
was
Ralph
right.
Farnham, who was the last surviving Bunker Hill fighter. Acton and Shapley both have a lot of history. We've got 60 years worth of archives to prove it.
I would encourage anybody to go down there. I haven't been there for many years now, but
I've been there for.
the information
I have. You should
that's in
go.
that building is unbelievable.
But no, seriously, Historic Society is such an important part of
Well,
a
being
town.
a youngster earlier on, I didn't realize it. But
Well, you know,
now
of course you didn't.
I'm getting there and I do realize.
Right, right.
You know, so one of the things we're trying to do is like digitize all the records of everything. You know, we also do the graveyard committee, and when you're trying to find stuff without having that history of where to locate, it's horrible. And we've lost our elders, they're passing on, so we try to collect all that, and she's been building a database. You know, we have internet, that's one of our big quote things now at the Historical Society, and that's part of the budget.
Now, someone donated a computer.
There you
And it
go.
has a terabyte of hard disk space, so we have quite a bit of room for the archives.
Yeah.
But, don't you know, all of the plugs at the Historical Society are the two-prong.
Yeah, so that's my next.
So all
mission.
the outlets have to be replaced.
Rewired.
So,
Rewired,
you know, we're
yeah.
looking at that as an expense.
But seriously, I mean, you know, you just sort of offhanded said the silver mines. Now, I mean, I know that towards the latter part of the 1800s, it was kind of a big deal here. I know one fellow here, I don't know if he owns land here, but he lives in Shapley, that he has been collecting silver certificates from these silver mines for years. And, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that
was the
Presentation.
beginning.
you know, but things like that,
This is the
And-
balance of June of
I
last
mean,
year.
you don't get history
Last
back
year.
if you lose it.
That's not current.
You
That's
do
what
not,
I've learned.
But we don't know what we
Quite a bit
don't
of money.
know. We didn't know about that.
Don't you think?
We're finding these
It
things
is a
like the
lot.
bear, the guy he's talking about here.
well,
We
it's
didn't hear
bear
about
season,
this
you know, I don't know your story, but it is bear
In
season.
the program, so it'll be out there, the pet bear.
But we're finding things
Yeah.
because we're getting more active. You know, we're trying to get the word out. We have Wi-Fi in the building. We have a website that we've been trying to maintain it. We have a Facebook presence so that we can keep people up to date. And little by little, people are coming back to us and saying, hey, you know, I know about a
Yeah,
guy that used to live on Mousom Lake that owned a pet bear.
yeah, and she
Who
gets
knew?
calls from all around the US from family members
Yeah.
that are
Genealogical
researching,
research.
and then for some reason, these people will come out of Kentucky, or they come here all the way to Maine to visit the Historical Society to research something in the family. So, there's a lot of that. And as sad as COVID was, it did help with a lot of these smaller programs, so, you know, we had to turn
what would you
people away
do?
at one of our programs.
What would you do with the money you have? I mean, do you have a punch list? I'm not asking about Lincoln School, but you have a,
No. So what we get money from you is just for our operating expense. That just helps us to float. What we're doing
Okay.
is, you mentioned the roof, you know. I do most of the burden myself, and then sometimes we have to hire stuff, but we're trying to restore that building so that it's user-friendly to everybody. It's in Shapley, but we have the pavilion as our other building that we restored. We use that for everybody. So, you know, for benefits or concerts or anything, and, you know, whatever programs we can put on to help, you know. Eventually, we're trying to get that restored so we can open it up to the community for whatever, weddings or whatever they want to use a gigantic facility for, which there aren't many in this local area.
Are you talking about the pavilion that's right there in the
Right across from the
intersection,
town
not too
hall.
far away from the town hall there
Yeah,
in
that's
Chapley?
Formerly the Grange. We're not
Yeah,
allowed to
so-
call it the Grange.
Okay.
All right.
So that's one of our big, that's a $70,000 endeavor. We've got to raise the building
Yeah.
up and put a
But
foundation.
you just said our $2,000 covers your,
Just operating expenses.
Just
Just
operating
the things that
expenses.
keep us going if we did absolutely no programs, no concerts, no community
and your
involvement.
total budget is,
Can you tell me what MLP is?
Mousom Lake Pavilion.
Ah, that's what that is.
Named it after the Mousom Lake Pavilion, which used to exist on Mousom Lake at the turn of the last century.
That was one of the Grange.
It used to be Mousom Lake Grange, but when we acquired it from the Grangers, their stipulation was that
We
we were
couldn't
not
keep the name.
allowed to use the name, we had to take the name off of the building.
oh,
Sorry.
no, that's,
I didn't see a reference to that acronym and I couldn't figure out what it was.
yeah.
I was trying to find a name that would benefit both Acton and Shapley. So we came up with the term pavilion and so forth, which is really a dance hall, because that's what the Grange really
Yeah.
was a dance hall. And then through just research by accident on Square Pound from the GAR camps,
That's Mousom.
excuse me, there was actually a Mousom Lake Pavilion, so by accident we recreated it, so.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't see a reference to it anywhere in the narrative and I was just like, well, okay, I don't know what this is, I have to ask. You mind if I take
that
this
it?
question?
Go ahead.
All right. Joe had asked a sidebar question here.
Sure.
A lot of the revenue expenses that are on the sheet here are somewhat dated, and that's not really an issue to me.
Yep.
But the question was, I think what Joe wanted to know is, and it sort of leads into what Joyce had asked, what were your future plans, or what were you trying to save for? Because you have a fairly decent nest egg compared to what your expenses are that are listed here. And so we're not just giving more money for the nest egg.
Yep.
Do you have plans? Is there some 10-year plan that you've developed to where this is what you want to do, and these are potential expenses that you're going to foresee in accomplishing this goal?
So basically, our next endeavor that we're trying to do right now is to paint the Ash Building, which is the schoolhouse at the foot of the lake. And that's gonna be in the upwards of $8,000.
Yep.
Part of that nest egg that you see is really money that was set aside from a grant for the pavilion to put towards working on that we got from Tom's of Maine. So that's why it looks inflated, but that money's specific for, hopefully in the future, of putting it on a foundation to save that building.
Yep.
So right now, we don't have any hired people. It's all volunteers.
Right.
And it's getting hard to find people that are physically able to volunteer, let alone just be able to come to meetings and sit on board. We have the pavilion restoration is probably our 10-plus year project. We have a more immediate need. We just ran out of propane to heat our, the society building. And we're gonna put propane in there so we can use it, but we really need to consider getting an upgrade. We were thinking about getting a heat pump,
Right.
which, those aren't inexpensive. Luckily, it's a small building, so it's not like we need several of them. One should do, but that's an expense
Too
for the
bad.
next, couple of years.
But the payoff should be quick on that.
Yeah,
We hope, yes.
Yeah, we're hoping, and it'll help my back, because I have to put 3 or 4 air conditioners in the window every
Yeah,
summer.
heat pumps at least will solve 2 problems,
That's
because
right.
we have air
Split.
conditioners that we have to keep taking out of the window and putting in the window, taking out of the window. Enough already.
Since you brought up heating and utility expenses, have you ever done a energy efficiency audit or had one done on the building?
No, we were just talking about that. One of the members was bringing that up and mentioned the heat pump instead of going full bore with filling the propane tank and stuff.
Because you might want to do the audit before you actually do the heat pump.
Oh, yes.
And that way,
Yep.
you can actually size it to whatever retrofit or improvements you make to the building to make it more energy efficient, because fuel costs are only going to keep rising.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was a schoolhouse, so you know it wasn't.
It had
a
nothing.
Well insulated,
No.
and the crawl space underneath is not insulated. But to our advantage, it's not on the historical register, so we don't have a lot of those
Absolutely.
dead ends that
Yep.
we would
Yeah.
be faced with, so.
Yeah.
We also have the back porch needs to be replaced with another porch and ramp so that we have two exits that are handicap accessible, which is a big deal these days.
Is it currently ADA compliant?
Yes, it is. But I would prefer to have two exits, even though.
Especially when we
you
fill it
only legally need
with
one.
programs and people come in
And
droves.
especially because it's a public building. I mean,
Yes.
you really
Yeah.
want that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't want to do that till we finish painting it, which we're
Right.
hoping to finish this summer, so.
I mean, there's the electrical upgrades and other, within the next couple of years, it would be nice to have all of those outlets be three-pronged. LED lights, more plugs, more outlets, things that have just not been on the priority list.
But you may want to do that at the same time you're doing any energy
Energy
retrofits,
audit,
because
yeah.
you're going to be peeling off walls somewhere, and that's the
Yeah.
time to do the electrical.
Yeah, no, and we know if we do that, we have to have 220, and the building is really set up with 110 everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
It's got regular power coming in, but there's no 220 outlets anywhere.
What would you need 220 loads?
If you put in
The
a
heat
heat
pump wouldn't
pump,
need
you're
it.
gonna be running.
Okay, for that, but I mean, that's a 20 amp or 30 amp circuit, that's,
Yeah, but other than that, we shouldn't need
Okay.
220 for anything else.
I was just gonna suggest, maybe efficiency of main could be a big help with you guys on that. Sometimes
Yeah,
they're
We're
paying
just getting back and meeting now, because
Right.
now the snow's finally over.
40%, 50% of the cost they'll pay for, and it wouldn't surprise me. Could save quite a bit of money going through them.
Well, thank you for bringing us up to date on what, like, I had no idea about the Grange Pavilion
Yeah.
thing, but what you have in that building, is it insured?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I spent a whole summer with our then president trying to deal with the insurance company that we had before because they weren't being very agreeable with us to maintain proper insurance on the pavilion.
Yeah.
We found a place that was much more reasonable, but still, when you're talking two buildings, and if you know what the
Well, the
size of that
contents,
pavilion
I'm-
is,
I'm curious about the contents
of the pavilion?
or the building itself, the
so
historical, where you have things that,
The archives are in the schoolhouse.
okay,
The pavilion, because it's in the middle of being
Right,
renovated,
right.
restored, we don't want to put too many
No,
items
but-
in there for lack of.
but your archives are insured and
Yes.
all that sort of
We
thing.
have proper insurance.
Right.
This is what the first insurance company wasn't giving us proper insurance for.
And there's a big
An historical
difference, yeah.
society and for a building like the pavilion, which needs,
Yeah.
special care.
Absolutely. Thank
Okay,
you.
guys? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
You guys have
Very much.
factories that used to be in Acton?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, or the foundations and what that are.
Yes, the shoe factories that used to be in Acton, we had a sign made up, but the owner of the property won't let us
Don't put it there.
put up the sign. It's unfortunate, so.
We need,
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys. You did a great
Let us know
job.
if you want us to come back anytime.
And thank you for what you do.
Thanks.
The next thing we have, guys, is Saco River Commission. Guess you're up, Charlie.
Two Charlies at the table now. Very confusing to me initially.
And we share a barber.
We just won't let you two talk. That's all. That won't be confusing. You just want to give an overview, Charlie, or to the people, what the Saco River Corridor Commission does?
Okay, good. So I am the acting commissioner for the Saco River Corridor Commission. The commission was created by an act of the state legislature back in the early 70s. At that time, the Saco River, unlike many of the rivers further north, had a very low levels of pollution. Didn't have any paper mills or heavy industry on it. And so, by act of the legislature, they passed essentially an additional land use overlay over 500 feet on either side of the Saco River and the Little Ossipee River, which is how Acton gets into it. The commission functions kind of like a code enforcement officer, kind of like a zoning board or a planning board, in that we grant, we have a set of requirements that structures have to meet, just like the towns do. And if somebody wishes to build or move soil or so forth in the corridor, they need to come to the commission for a permit to do that. Probably there's a lot of talk here about water quality. We're also very much focused on water quality. The difference, really, from my perspective, relative to a town, is that actually our remit includes the aesthetics. And so when somebody is putting a structure on the river, one of the things that we're very concerned about is preserving the trees that provide that visual screen so that the structure can't be viewed from the water. So that's kind of what the corridor does. What this is, well, all 20 towns in that are in the corridor are asked for an annual contribution, which historic for many years had been $300 a year for Acton. This year they upped it to $400. And the rest of the ask that's in there is for water quality testing. The commission monitors water quality, in addition to kind of the basic, temperature and oxygen levels and phosphorus levels, which you were talking about earlier. We've also started doing, they do coliform bacteria testing at various positions around the lake. It is or the river. It's a recreational river. Recently the commission was successful in getting a grant for equipment so that they can augment the E. coli testing using environmental DNA. And what that means in layman's term is, you detect E. coli in a water body. Did that come from a human? Did it come from wildlife? And so they have the capability that, okay, we've got coliform bacteria in the river. They'll determine whether, okay, if it's human, then somewhere upstream there's an issue that has to be dealt with. Obviously, if it's wildlife, it's not. So what they're asking for is a little over $750. About half of that is that annual contribution. About the other half is for the water quality testing that's done. I assume everybody knows where the Little Ossipee is, the Little Ossipee River. So the sampling sites are at the dam at Balch, and then actually the next site is in Shapley because, as you know, you're walking or taking an ATV if you want to interact with the rest of the the Little Ossipee River.
So what you're asking for, Charlie, is the 400 and asking the town to put in another warrant article for the 750?
Yeah,
So you're gonna want,
yeah.
You want 750 or do you want 11?
You want 1150?
1150,
I think it's 1150.
1150.
yeah.
Yeah.
At what point does the Little Ossipee River join into the Saco River?
Well, it becomes Lake Arrowhead.
Okay,
Lake Arrowhead is the flowage, and then there's the dam at New Dam Road, off Arrowhead, and then it's somewhere downstream of that. Frankly, I don't know.
so Little
all
Ossipee would
flows.
feed into Lake Arrowhead, which would eventually permeate into the Saco
Into the
River
Saco, right.
corridor itself,
The
correct?
Little Ossipee has the corridor overlay on it, just like
Okay.
the Saco River. The Little Ossipee is just a tributary of the Saco, and,
I've always been concerned with the multinationals dipping the straw into the Saco River corridor from Freiburg south, you know, they've drawn a lot of water out, and they still do.
oh, you're talking about like Poland Spring?
Yeah, I didn't want to mention that, just.
Yeah. Oh,
When you take the water testing, like from Balch Lake, technically that water's come from Balch Lake, most of it's coming from New Hampshire, is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay, so at what point, if you found pollution at that point, where would you go? I mean, what would you do? You-
I mean, well, if you're going with Balch Lake, I mean, the first thing I would do is talk to Blimp, the Balch Lake Improvement folks, and see what's going on there. And maybe they have some idea in terms of what that potential source is.
How often do you test that?
So the sampling is about half a dozen samples per year, across the seasons, starting in the spring and continuing into
So
the
there'd be
fall.
roughly 18 samples for the 3 locations?
Correct.
Okay. yeah. Now, do you post those anywhere, or do we?
You get a report I think that's all on the website,
Okay,
on the SRCC website.
okay. And that's the one that's located in Cornish?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
My only question is, or observation, whichever it is, the graphs that are included in this, I don't know whether these were faxed over or whether these were printed out and then submitted to Jennifer, but I imagine these were originally done in color.
Yeah, I have
And what we have is black and white, and color doesn't translate very well to black and white. Especially
it
if those,
doesn't.
if
Yeah, I
they
have-
were black and red or black and blue, they all come out black. So I was just wondering whether in the future, just a suggestion, if you could, on line graphs, bar graphs are pretty easy,
Yep.
but on line graphs, if you could, on your different, legend items, if, you could have one of them solid, one of them dotted or dashed
Change
or
the
something like.
symbol, yeah.
'Cause it eliminates that whole color issue, black and white issue.
I'll pass that along to Dallin. Yeah, I just worked from my phone.
Yeah.
It's a lovely PDF that's in color, so maybe I should just
I've made that mistake myself, so I just thought in the future it might be helpful to someone. Otherwise, everything looks good on the ground, the testing.
And the water's in good shape,
Yeah,
yeah. But you need that baseline to know
Oh, yeah.
when it goes bad.
no, you have to have it, because otherwise you don't know when it goes bad.
That's right, exactly.
So the 400 is just assumed, right? That's what you ask for, and then on the second page, you're talking about the 750 for the monitoring program.
Correct. So if the money's doesn't come, then the monitoring would have to be scaled back.
I see it's gotten cheaper to do, and you can do more sites because you can now do it yourself, right?
Yeah, do it in-house.
Yeah.
Do you send it to a lab, like Nelson Lab, or do you, or can you?
They had, Katahdin was the name of the contractor they used for the water quality test, and then to reduce costs, they brought it in.
Do you anticipate doing more in the next 5 years, more water testing?
More,
Water
I mean,
testing.
additional,
Additional to what you're doing now? Well, with the influx of development and
yeah,
climate change or acid rain,
yeah. Well, acid rain is less of a problem, climate change is more of a problem, yeah. It's, I mean, the amount has increased over the past 5 years, so, I mean, I can't predict the future.
well, I remember it always being around $400, $300-400.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, this is pointing out with another $700, but it's also defining what you're using the money for.
Yep.
You know, oftentimes, we see things, we just see figures, and what are you using what's the money for?
Yeah, I think if they went to Nelson Labs, it would be a lot more expensive.
Yeah, well, no, that's what we use, but it's
Yeah.
as simple, it's easy, it's handy.
Anybody else?
The comments on here about, consider having porta potties at popular swim boat launches. There's not currently any facilities at any of the
Not at Ball's,
public sites?
not in Acton.
Not- not-
Acton doesn't have a public
No.
on Ball's.
There's a vault on, for the public boat launch on Great East Lake. Where they pump it.
Right, but on Ball's, there is no public access, on Acton side
And
anyway.
who would be responsible for that?
What's that?
Who would be responsible for that if that became an issue? I mean, what do people do now?
I got no idea.
Okay.
Probably the same thing the Bay do.
Right, that's, just had to raise the question, though.
I don't know, I assume.
You heard about the bear and mouse? You heard
It's
about the
probably
bear
that
and
bear
mouse?
from Mouse on the.
Is there a lot of overboard dumping going on or something?
You know, you'd be surprised how many outhouses, and there's still a few OBDs on the Saco. I mean,
Really?
yeah, we're still cleaning all of that up.
Right.
We had one last year. At OBD. There's a whole issue around Bill and Parsons Field that has tanks which are supposed to be pumped, and, but they really need a septic system, and there's a land, you know, there's some legal action going on which is delaying it, so, but yeah, it's, you know, it's real.
Right, I just,
Yeah.
Any other wildlife questions, Charlie?
no, it's,
Dennis hasn't covered.
I got the answers.
Yeah.
All set?
Well, I didn't have any questions until acid rain was mentioned, and you say that's down. I was wondering if you guys have any knowledge of the chemtrails that seem to be quite proficient nowadays in the skies. And my understanding that a lot of aluminum oxides are within those chemtrails. Is anyone testing for any of that?
You're talking about from planes?
Yes.
Contrails.
Chemtrails. The contrails, when the plane is flying by and there's
Yeah.
a little streak behind, dissipates.
Right.
The chemtrails are the ones that they leave behind and they spread out all over the place.
No, I don't know anything about those.
That's what you see in the woods.
No, that's what you see everywhere.
No, I'm saying, in the woods, you'll see the foam running down the trees. And that's from those chemicals that are in the sky.
So there's in fact
They fly in patterns.
happening with the environment, but nobody's,
I appreciate that, but that's probably beyond,
That's beyond
That's
our
kind of
scope.
out of scope.
let's go.
Way beyond our scope.
not even landing on that.
Scope for Awa, I'm an Awa director, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not in the Saco River corridor, that's for sure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Sir.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure everybody has a lot better understanding of what this is now. Oh, last but not least
The lady who stood up all
shadows
the time.
is Kids Free to Grow.
Patrice Leary Forey.
Larry Forey. Hi,
Leary
how are you?
Forey, how are you?
The townspeople of Acton are very fortunate to have you here.
And I want to say thank you for your time.
Oh, goodness, we're thanking you for coming.
I've been here listening to all these educational talks. I've learned a lot. Usually get to go first, but I've learned more tonight. So I want to say thank you for your time.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. Boy, we didn't even have to bribe you with any money or like that for the compliment. This is incredible.
I haven't been here in years, and I reach out all the time. So Kids Free to Grow, because it's an informational session. Kids Free to Grow is the Prevention Council for Child Abuse and Neglect in York and Cumberland County. We've been in existence for over 45 years. We started in basement of a church, I believe in Saco, moved to Kennebunk. We've been in Biddeford over the years, and our office is back now in Kennebunk. I was scheduled last Monday, but Jen was generous enough to reschedule. We're a small team with a mighty mission.
I think you were first on the agenda last time, though.
Probably. Now I got moved to the bottom. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, but you learned a lot, so.
I won't take too much of your time, but in the past, I've been asked about our budget and operating costs and things like that, and we ask a very modest amount from each town. Kids Free to Grow serves all the municipalities in York County annually. And this year I had the pleasure of visiting the elementary school, and every single student that attends from 5th grade to preschool. You have an amazing social worker who helps support the students, and she organized.
She does a great job.
She is fantastic.
Yeah.
You're lucky to have her. And so we do a lot of prevention for children, adults, parents, throughout York County, and then we do a lot of professional trainings for recreation departments, anyone who's what we call a mandated reporter in the state. And so that is just to help support communities who are mandated reporters and professionals. And all the services we provide are at no cost. So our funding comes from private donations, community grants. We have a fundraiser each year that helps support the funding. And then we also get a very large grant from the state that actually pays for 3 of our 4 employees. And so that's a really generous grant that we hope continues. And so, yeah, and so our, I think on our budget this year, we may have had a little bit of an overage, if I remember, and that was due to,
The net income?
an open position, and then one of our employees was on maternity leave. So we just kind of held on to those funds in hopes that we have another fruitful year. If not, that's the reserves. Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ray.
Do you work hand in hand with Caring Unlimited?
Yes.
It seems that you guys provide the same type of service.
No.
No.
Totally different.
No, Caring Unlimited is for domestic violence.
Okay.
So they provide services from housing to advocacy to outreach.
Okay.
That is one of the risk factors that is in the county currently. That's a very high risk factor for families, as well as substance use disorder within families. So we have programs that we collaborate. I don't know if you're familiar with Layman Way. So we collaborate with them. They're a recovery program in Alfred that helps support families in that risk factor. And so a lot of the work we do is in collaboration with other agencies. And so Caring Unlimited is one. We have, oh gosh, I could go on and on, but Head Start families we support. We support new moms at York Hospital,
Southern Maine Healthcare. So, yeah.
You said you go to the school and meet with K through 5. Can you give us an example of?
Preschool through
5.
5th grade, yep. So we're all about prevention, okay? So we know when kids are not having an adverse childhood experience, or an ACE, is so it's called, they have a greater projection in life, right? So they're healthier, they're happier, right? And they're contributing back to their communities. So we go in and we do prevention education around child abuse and neglect. And so we know, how do you prevent it? You have healthy relationships with your parents, with your peers, and in your community. So we teach a lot of around boundaries, personal boundaries, that kind of thing. So building understanding of what's a healthy relationship and what is an abusive relationship.
So then you present that just to the classes in general?
To the students when we're in a school. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the parent education programs are all evidence-based. They're between a 4-session class to a 14-session class. And again, it's all about supporting parents in positive parenting and how they can be the best parents that they can be.
Good cause.
It's a great cause.
Have you got any direct cases in Acton? Or you can't talk about it?
So I think the best way to prevent and support a community is doing exactly what you're doing now. So making sure that the water's clean for families to go to and swim in the summer, so that they can have a nice, positive, healthy experience when they go to the lake or the river. What you're doing here and supporting a lot of the organizations is building that healthy community. And so that's why I started with thanking you for your time, because you're investing in your community, your environment to help support communities.
I'll say this, Joe, because she really can't.
Okay,
I can. As you know, I say whatever I want.
I know.
As a former employee of the school, and being one of the originators of the crisis response team in the school, and also being a truant officer for the school, some of the stories you get are unimaginable when it is a crisis. And the worth of this organization, for example, doing pre-K through 5, Sharing Unlimited, doing 6th, 7th, and 8th, and into high school, even though the different programs, they're still doing basically the same thing, just different age groups, and the approach is different. And God love these organizations, because there's nothing more heartbreaking than some of the stories you got to deal with that you would never imagine from some of these children. Does that answer your question, Joe? Anybody else?
I can say this, the data and the statistics for York County are available through the Office of Child and Family Services, and it's not very glowing for York County. And so we're a small organization doing the best that we can to help support families. And, it takes groups like you to offer opportunities in the community so that families can have those positive experiences with their children and see that value and joy in that relationship.
Unless it's okay.
Go ahead, Charlie.
The certifications or technical competencies of staff when they go out to these facilities, is this mostly social workers or
So actually
LCSWs?
our whole staff currently is master level trained.
Okay.
And it's just by chance, we all have a great passion for serving the community, and education to back it. Not
all the staff across the state, so there's councils across the state that do the work that we do, but it's bachelor level. We just all happen to have our masters.
So we're lucking out in this area.
Yep.
You're lucky to have us.
Yeah.
But like you said, we're passionate about the work.
Yep.
And so I think your contribution, this year I did the math because I actually provided the curriculum to the students this year. So it cost the town of Acton $1.60 per student for what your contribution was.
As you can tell, I'm very defensive of the program, so.
Yeah,
I think the other thing not to forget is sometimes Patrice might come across something, and if you remember last week, we had our friend Daniel here, and she can call Daniel and say, I need a place for 3 kids and a mother, and they work together. And now she's spending a dollar, what?
Well, it was $1.60.
A dollar
for what?
$1.60
Per child.
per child.
I think it's a good investment.
Yeah, and the other one, which the name just is not coming to my head.
So SARSM is another organization
yeah,
that we partner with, and I don't know if they ask you.
They're like
contributions, but.
It was what, $50 a family, direct Acton families. I
Right.
mean, we're very fortunate to have you.
And we are fortunate that you welcome us in your community.
I'm glad you guys
Yeah.
came. I'm glad that a lot of people needed to learn what these organizations were doing, and I find myself, I've been doing this forever, and I kind of take it for granted that I kind of know what's going on, and they brought to my attention this year that I don't know as much as I think I know, and we need to have some people come here and explain what's really happening, and people have done a great job with that. Everybody that's come, I really appreciate what everybody's done. And you
Last
included.
week, I passed these out to all of you.
Yeah, I have that.
You've got it? That's who she is in a nutshell.
Okay.
So,
I'm just looking at your trustee fund. So it says that
So
you have a mortgage payable to the Maine State Housing Authority.
Okay, so, how can I explain this? Okay, so, Kids Free to Grow, combined, I think it's like 12 years ago with another organization. So we had a board, they were looking for a board, so it's 2 separate 503
501c3.
organizations, so it's 2 separate non-for-profits. We're overseen by one board, and so our executive director manages both organizations, Connections for Kids and Kids Free to Grow. So when you look at our submission from Barry Dunn, I think is maybe what you're reading, a lot of that verbiage is reporting out on Connections for Kids. So we rent a space down in Kennebunk from a landlord who gives us a really great deal on Route 1 as a non-for-profit doing the work that we do. And so, yeah, so a lot of, I think, what you're reading may be from the Connections for Kids.
Okay, I'm looking at your
Organization.
2020.
And I can't explain any of that because I just run the programs.
Right, but I see that you make payments to facilities and equipment and leases of $174,000.
Right.
So you guys have, is that your place of work, where you house people, or they have issues? I'm trying
Okay,
to
so
understand.
Connections for Kids, which is a different organization from Kids Free to Grow, because we have a shared board, we submit, we have to have a third-party oversight for our finances, so it's contracted through Barry Dunn. And so they look at the end of that document is where you'll find the information for Kids Free to Grow. I cannot speak at all about our other organization,
connections for kids.
And that's all listed in there, right? So they're combined.
Yeah, so the last 3 pages
Pretty high
of
dollar
that-
amounts on facilities and utilities are 125,000.
But we don't know what the other organization is doing, right? And this budget is part of the other organization too. It's probably a big part of it, to tell you the truth.
But that's for multiple buildings, not just 1 or 2 buildings, correct? Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
they
Well, that's what I was
have
asking.
a residence for, youth,
Which I think answers Ray's question, whether or
Right,
not
that
some
was-
of that is
they have
resident,
this
so.
office building, they rent all their printers, they have Kittery Academy, that's a condo unit down in Kittery. I can't speak to all of that.
I think you'd
I
have to
really
go-
can't, I
you'd have
can
to go back
only
and-
speak
and
to Kids Free to Grow.
Read the section
and-
about the grants.
Right.
You'll see that a lot of that is actually from grants that cover a lot of those expenses that are earmarked specifically for that.
That's what you can do at night, right?
Kids, yeah.
Well, I just got
Still
this
go all that
tonight,
in.
so, you know.
It's
I'm just trying to
confusing.
Find out.
It is confusing, and when a town asks for that, I'm always like, oh boy. Because it doesn't really reflect our small unit of what we do as a very separate organization, yeah.
And they don't do a breakout just for you. No, they do it for the organization, right,
Yeah.
Right.
which makes it difficult, but.
I send it to you because you ask for it.
But it's pennies per resident. I mean, this
Yeah.
is 3 cents per resident, and this
Yes.
is a non-issue. In my opinion, anyway. I don't count, but.
Everybody else set?
Well, and I do say, you know, if you, I can, please reach out to my executive director, Genevieve Gardner. She's also listed there, or Deb is our accountant.
I think the second page says it all,
I'm sure she'd be happy to go through any of that with you.
more or less.
I mean, to me, you know, if you're able to intercede and prevent or mitigate harm to one child, this $500 is nothing.
Yeah.
Actually saves you, our whole society, millions.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Nothing.
This is even worth discussing, in my opinion, because this is nothing compared to what it costs society.
No, right, but the reason that we brought someone or asked someone to come in was to find out about the organization.
Right.
And, you know, I'm looking at numbers because we're a budget and finance, or a warrant and finance committee.
No, and I appreciate you doing the due diligence.
No, it's a legitimate question. I agree with you.
Legitimate question,
But-
absolutely.
But it's difficult because of the way their organization is structured to actually have a breakout. But if you read through the whole thing, actually spend the night, and that's what it took me, to go through all the spaghetti going between all the different funds and grants, it makes sense, but it is confusing.
Right, and I mean, I saw in there was a column for Kids for Grow, or Kids Free to Grow, is 169,000 is what their operating budget, their operating budget is, not the entire organization. So, all right.
I think the little budget page is probably a better one to go by, which is what I ask my accountant to give to you guys, because I think it gives a clearer picture.
I'll be all set.
Good to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Good luck with your process.
Thank you very much.
This other part, on the old business, I forwarded the 3 questions to the Board of Selectmen. In your packet, you'll see the breakdown of the $20,000, and hopefully that answers everybody's questions. What the $20,000 was for. There's also an explanation of what they want to do down to the storage building, down at the sand shed. well, the $11,000 question. And the other thing was the flat ground road. We asked why that was still being separated out. I need to say that I was very disappointed at the selectmen's meeting for the comments made about the chair of the Warrant and Finance Committee. I thought it was very unprofessional. And I'm not going to get into the misinformation that was put out. They sent us the contract that the town voted on back 4 years ago in our packet. It's in the packet, isn't it?
I didn't see it in the packet, but
You saw it in
the email. I did see the email.
No, I didn't. Okay.
Spoke about the $20,000 original.
No,
Questions?
Right, but I guess my point is,
I didn't, did anybody see that?
What?
no, it's in the email then.
It's in the email.
It's supposed to be in the
Oh, okay.
packet, but that's okay.
All right.
This is the bottom line when it comes to the flat ground road. There's only two people that's involved in town government now that was actually there in the meetings, and that's Kim Stacy Horn and myself. Everything else that anybody has anything to say about it is hearsay or misinformation. This is the bottom line. The flat ground road was discontinued according to the town's attorney. That being said, that's fine, in 1960. The issue was, when you discontinue a road by a state law, which they did previously to 1960 and since 1960 when the towns discontinued roads, number one, first thing you have to do is notify the landowners that you're going to discontinue the road. And then the town would vote on it. And then the town would go over to Alfred over the registry and register the discontinuance. That wasn't done.
The last part.
Or the notification.
Okay.
Prior to, or it wasn't registered over the York County Registry of Deeds. So in the meeting that I was at with, what now is Kim and Elise Miller and Ed Wallace and Joe Lankowski, Joe presented what he found. And so I said, show me the letter that was sent to the landowners that you're going to discontinue the road, and show me where it's recorded in Alfred. Joe went to Alfred. There's no record of it. It was never done. The town had no record of sending notifications to the landowners. So by default, on the town's part, the road wasn't discontinued. Because they didn't follow through with their process. And then in 1978, for some reason, the flat ground road, even though the town was taking care of it all those years, ended up on the private road list. No idea why or anything about it. So then you fast forward to 2005, which is 45 years after the selectmen didn't follow through with what they were supposed to do. According to Winchell the other night, the town discontinued it again. And in there, Joe explains what his opinion is in that contract, and then adversely, this is the opinion of the residents of the flat ground road. And their issue was, like I just said, those two issues. Nobody from the Flat Ground Road ever threatened a lawsuit against the town. If they can show me a document where they got a letter from a lawyer, it just never happened. But this, I don't know why it turned into all this the other night, because our question was, why is there a separate dollar amount for the Flat Ground Road? The answer to that in a nutshell is, and David Winchell was the one doing the talking, that he wants to keep the Flat Ground Road separated out in the warrant article so that people will always know it's a private road.
But I thought you just said it's not a private.
I thought you just said it
He
was.
said so they wouldn't say it's a town road.
No, that is not, that's not what I heard.
Well, that's what I heard. I watched the meeting twice afterwards.
I heard that they put it on the budget so that it would not get lost in the process and therefore be taken into,
To being a town road.
I don't know about a town road. He didn't say anything about it being a town road. He just, the answer to the question that I asked was, you know, why was it in the budget as a line item? And his reply was so that it would not get lost.
Well, it seems like the base issue is, it's like pregnancy, either you are or you aren't. Well, it's either it's a town road or it's not a town road.
Well, legally, it's never been discontinued if there's never.
Right, and therefore it's a town road.
It's a town road.
And always has been.
But if it had a long period where it wasn't maintained by the town.
Didn't happen.
Considered discontinued, or it hasn't?
No.
It's always been maintained in one form or another.
Yes.
And it's always been a town road.
I lived there, Charlie.
Yeah, I mean,
That part's obvious, I think, compared to
You know.
the other part about the money being a separate line item to keep it from.
And I was just disappointed that we just didn't get an answer, the simple version, like Ray just said. He wants to keep it separated out so that down the road, it doesn't fall into the town road category by people that don't know what's going on.
But then you must be considering it a private road if you're keeping it separate from.
He does.
All the other town roads.
He does,
Well, I'm not concerned about what one select person.
but they write
What
the
is-
warrant.
What does the town consider it? Does the town proper?
You look in the contract, and
Well, what contract? I'm missing something.
the contract that the town voted on in 2018, I think it was.
For those separate funds, I vaguely remember. I didn't remember it being a contract.
Yeah, there's $20,000 and.
A Title 42 or something like that.
And then,
So I remember.
they had to raise another 15,000 to finish the job. And,
That was just for grading, basically.
well,
They initially appropriated the money to grade the road.
That's.
And then that was not spent on grading, it was spent on ditching. The fund was down to zero. And what they initially were gonna do, hadn't been done. And then they had expenses of culverts and some mishmash gravel that they had hauled in. So going back to what they were really gonna do initially, they had to appropriate more money.
So then my question is, why wasn't there a clawback if what you had appropriated the money for wasn't done and someone took it upon themselves to do something other than what the funds were earmarked for?
Because that's the way the town was being run at that point.
So there was no management then?
There's no management, no.
Okay, so that's a separate issue from,
so I guess, Charlie, my point is, kind of like Tom said the other night, and I agree 100%. It doesn't change anything, okay? We have to take care of the road as a town,
it is a town road then, is what
all
you're saying?
right? Yeah, and we have to take care of it.
So then it shouldn't need to be a separate item then, that should just be included, no?
Right.
I'm not gonna fight that fight.
I mean, it makes no sense. I
You
mean,
know
that
what I
should be
mean?
part of that district's budget. And if that's required annual maintenance, it's just included in that district's budget.
It was also.
They cut the money the other night, as I remember it.
Something about snow plowing.
Yeah, they decided that the snow plowing would come out of the town budget, or municipal snow removal budget, or whatever you want to call it, winter maintenance.
Winter maintenance.
And then just a summer maintenance would be a separate line.
Well, they already are separate items, summer and winter. But I mean, but it should all be in that district's budget as one aggregate.
Well, he said the other night that the money that was there was for winter and summer.
That's on that one just flat ground road
Right.
budget item that was summer and winter.
Yeah.
But that's not consistent with the rest of the budget then.
And they changed it the other night to the winter would come out of the regular budget and the summer would still be left in there.
So technically, they shouldn't even get involved in it.
I don't know.
It's a.
I guess my question.
Division two.
The whole situation is, on the email that we got, it was $20,000 to take care of that road.
No, it was to fix the road.
Okay, that was to fix
make
the
it
road.
passable.
I thought I read it was to maintain the road was $20,000. Okay, now we're looking at being on a budget of $5,000. Now, he did say that reducing that $5,000 down to $3,000 for the grading and the ditching and all that other kind of stuff, and pop in the rest of it as far as plowing for the winter, to put that in their regular budget. So if you have a contract between the townspeople and Flat Ground Road that was originally for $20,000, at what point, and wouldn't that have to have gone to vote to reduce that amount to $5,000? It wouldn't have, and now it's being reduced to $3,000, and just the snowing and plowing?
Initially, it was $20,000 to grade it. This is a whole separate thing.
Well, that's what they were asking, one of the
No,
road
that's what they
commissioners
asked for.
at the last
It was not.
meeting. Was it gonna be enough with the $3,000 to grade?
Twice a year.
And all that?
My question, while you're saying that, is how can someone come up with an estimate that it's gonna cost $20K or $11K previously, to go and repair or grade the road? Now all of a sudden it's down to $3,000? How did that happen?
That was my question.
Because they don't know what they're talking about.
The dollar amount originally was given to the selectman from David Winchell
So it was a wag.
as road commissioner.
Yeah.
And when David quit, the $20,000 was spent.
It was gone.
We still owed Gilly Levine money, and we owed Rudy Pepin money. We had to have, this is when David Langley stepped in,
Right.
and it was in the fall, October, or whenever it was.
It was late.
And to finish what they were supposed to do, as far as putting gravel on the road, and pay Gilly Levine, and pay
Rudy Pepper.
Rudy Pepin, it was another, I can't say the dollar amount, Charlie, $10,000-$15,000.
And that was for materials already delivered or for materials
Already
needed? One or
spent.
both?
Just the culvert.
Hence, you should be using purchase orders.
Well, that, to
Then
me,
the money
that's,
wouldn't-
that's
But what I'm saying.
obvious.
So the other night, when it was said about the people who would be upset or whatever, the amount of money that's spent on this road, the only money that's spent on this road that I ever know anything about was what the people voted. There's never been money spent on that road that the people don't vote to spend. I mean, I didn't understand that comment.
Well, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around the whole idea that you have a separate line item for one road in the town. If it's either a town road or it's a private road, one or the other. That's all it can be.
Well, there is another contract with another road.
Well, how do you have a contract with a road? A road, when it becomes public, you take ownership, or you have a public use easement down that section of pavement or section of gravel, that pathway.
Like a Class
When it
C.
becomes private, the abutting landowners own to the center line.
center of the road.
And they're responsible for everything.
That's right.
But the other contract, if I'm not mistaken, is 13th Street?
But I get back to, how do you have a contract with a road? A road is a non-legal entity, other than it can be owned. It doesn't have rights of voting
It's
or
not
anything.
private to begin with.
In the contract that the town drew up, there was a clause in the bottom of it, and you'll find this interesting,
I'm sure I will.
that all the people that own property or residents of Flat Ground Road had to sign a release that they wouldn't take any action against the town
Or,
for the 10 years that I was taking care of the road, because they stopped in 2005. Or 12 years, whatever it was.
so they had to sign a release for past actions, or for current or future actions? I'm
Both.
missing this.
They could take no actions against the town.
Perpetuity, they're signing a release to carry on with their deeds, they're
Yeah.
recorded.
Yeah.
So this
Was that
release
recorded?
is recorded on each one of their deeds then?
No, but they have a document. Each
That
buddy.
document means nothing then, if it's
Well,
not recorded on their deeds.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Charlie. It's a document we all had to sign before and after town meeting.
Look, if you remember, when you and I got up at the same time, and I was so confused by all of it, and I asked, was this road ever a town road? You remember the answer?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, it was.
1860.
So to me, if the town was a town road, it was never
Discontinued.
discontinued properly from the procedure that
Well, it was
you
never-
need to go through.
therefore, it was never discontinued.
So it's null and void.
So it is a town
So
road.
that leaves it a town road.
It always has been.
And it would seem that it always has been. And I should think there would be a way simply to, once and for all, no opinions, fact, prove it. This
Prove
is
what?
a town road, cut and dried.
Well,
But I think
it
that-
seems like precedence proves that.
Well, yeah, but if we say,
What you have to be able to prove is prove that it was discontinued.
right.
If you
but-
can't
but-
prove that it's discontinued, then it's a town road and it should just be included in that district's budget.
Well, someone
and
already did that
discussion.
by going to Alfred or whatever and finding there was no such
There was no
document.
thing.
Or
So I
notice to
don't
the owner.
understand why it comes up and why we have single lines. And what I'm really more upset about, and I am upset about this, is when that question came up, it was stated that nobody on that committee knows what they're talking about.
Well,
Now, guys,
I don't want to get into opinions.
you know, it's whether an opinion or not. I think that was very unkind.
Yep, I agree.
We're an elected body. Some of us are up for election this year. And you don't know what you're talking about. That was just unkind and unnecessary. And I think to stop all of that, again, somebody needs to go to Alfred and say, this is it. It's,
We already had our town attorney do it.
well, have him do it again.
I don't know.
mean,
You have a separate town attorney other than the MMA?
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, land use. We
Yeah,
use
we have a land use
Joe
attorney.
Lankowski. He lives up Youngs Ridge.
And his, the legal opinion that he's gonna hang his hat on is,
The town has no documents.
so therefore it's a public road. It's a town road and it should just be included in that district's budget, end of discussion, split the summer, winter however they need to, but that's it.
All I know is the town's gonna take care of it. That's all I know.
But it will forever be a gravel road unless the road is brought up to proper spec
Well, it
as far
has
as
to
the
be-
base and everything.
Yeah, but we have other gravel roads that are town roads.
No, right, no, but just
You know what I mean?
to understand, I mean.
The town's exempt from their own ordinance when it comes to that, by the way.
Excuse me?
The road ordinance.
Well,
The town doesn't follow the road ordinance.
no, they have to.
They don't.
they're obligated, the town is obligated to follow that ordinance just like anyone else. The only thing the town doesn't have to do, it doesn't have to pay any fees.
Well, I'm telling you,
That's what they're
Charlie,
exempt from.
is they don't.
That's a whole different issue.
If you have a dirt road, it's a town road. If you have a dirt road, it's a private road. What you have to do to that road as a private road owner is a lot different than what the town does to pave a private road.
Before the town would be able to pave that, though, they would have to go before the town for a vote on appropriating funds for that, which would not be cheap.
No, God.
But you gotta do it.
It
I
would
what?
be-
That's what you have to do if you have that road, that private road.
If you
have to
own a
spend that
private
money.
road, you would have to bring your road up to
That standard.
specific
Oh, correct,
standard.
correct.
No matter if it costs
But the town doesn't.
$5 or $10. So if it's 500,000 or $1 million, you own the road, that's what you pay for.
If you want to bring it up to.
If you want to bring it up to town standard. But this was never,
But town
evidently, this
standard,
was never a private road. This has always been a
town standard does
road.
not dictate that it has to be paved.
Okay,
No, it can be a Class B
It has to
road.
be able to withstand a certain load capacity for vehicle access.
It can be a Class B road,
Well, now it has to be Class C if anything new has to be
right.
Class C or
So-
Class B?
C, because I was looking at.
Yeah, it's two different things, depends on what service you
Still, it's
want.
it's pretty particular on what you have to do with it. It's-
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it can't be just mud, you peel the grass off and drive on it, that won't
Oh,
pass.
golly.
We have dragged this
You have to
out.
have a turnaround so big for emergency vehicles.
At the end of it, right.
We have dragged this out, and, our next meeting will be in 2 weeks.
We'll still be here.
Before we ask for an adjournment, this cemetery list,
Yeah.
Yeah,
this was on the agenda for tonight?
yeah. No, we just brought it from last week, Charlie. Remember, we met with Jim last week?
Oh, I wasn't here, I got here.
Oh, I'm
after the
sorry.
meeting Because I had other
No,
obligations.
this was information that, I had Jen put in a packet that Jim had last week, but he didn't have copies for everybody.
Okay,
Yeah.
so since I wasn't here, and I don't want to belabor this too much, is, on all of these issues, a lot of these cemeteries to me seem as though they're private.
They're all private.
They're all private
All
cemeteries.
84, was it 84 of them?
And the question was asked of Jim, who is on
Jim Driscoll, yeah.
Yeah,
the town doesn't own a cemetery. There's no town cemetery. That we asked if they would approach the Board of Selectmen if we're gonna be cutting trees on private property, to have some kind of a form with a release or whatever to cut
Liability.
trees on their
Someone got
property.
hurt.
You know what I mean?
Well, that would be wise for the town and for the cemetery committee.
Both.
yeah. I mean,
But-
Jim thought it was a great idea.
But I get into the issue of appropriating public funds for private use.
Yeah.
Now, by state law, the town is obligated to do maintenance on plots, with individual plots where a veteran is placed.
Exactly,
Right.
100%.
That's an obligation, and I will defend that one.
Yeah. We have 6 cemeteries that
But
are
in
perpetual
gen-
care.
Perpetual care, they're under a trust managed by who?
The town. We have 6 trusts, Charlie.
Okay, I saw something about some trusts.
Yeah,
The first one's on the list.
there's 6 of them.
Okay, so I'm not gonna get into the management one way or another on that. My issue is, there's funds set aside for those. How they want to allocate those funds, that's the trustee's responsibility. All right? But as far as the rest of, the, what, 82 or whatever the number.
Whatever there is,
comes out
there's
to,
a lot of them.
There's nothing. They're all private, and therefore my question is, why are we allocating public funds for private property?
I can tell you the answer that I've gotten in the past. Because they used to, years ago, they didn't do it like they do it now. And the term, according to the auditor anyway, it was set up, the change the wording to all these is donations. And they're not. That way there it's legal for the town to do it. Donations was the key.
We're getting into semantics here.
Are we donating the money, the $15,000, or?
Yeah, we're donating it to the cemetery committee.
It still doesn't really answer the question is why are we doing it? Why are we allocating the money?
If it's a private cemetery, the owners of that cemetery should be contributing to this. The town as a whole shouldn't be paying for something that they see, they receive no use from it, no gain, no benefit. That's the whole idea between private and public. If it was a public cemetery, let's do it. But if it's a private, then the private owners collectively should fund all or quite the majority of it. You know, if you want to make a donation, but it should be nominal. It should be a goodwill gesture, not a complete payment.
Like what we're doing now with these other organizations.
Yeah, because they're all goodwill gestures, you know, but see, all those other organizations, there is a public benefit. I haven't seen one of them where there isn't a public benefit.
To Acton, yeah.
Right.
To Acton, the residents, the children, the citizens, you know, the general environment, the whole works.
May I make one comment?
This is a private benefit only.
Yeah.
Okay. May I make a comment? If we drive down San Page Road, just before you get to, was it?
Nason.
Goose Pond Road, is it Goose? Okay, before you get there, on the left, after they have a house jacked up, about 150 feet beyond that, there's a cemetery. Now, they cleaned it up and did a really nice job. I don't see any veterans flags there, but there are, I believe, maybe 6, maybe 7 red oaks, probably, 15, 18 inches high. It's all cleaned up. They're part of the cemetery. Whether you're taking them down for aesthetics, I don't know. But nevertheless, they're there, they're part of the cemetery. So if you're gonna spend $1,000 on that, how much are you gonna spend on 84 other cemeteries? You know?
No idea, Joe.
All right, so I mean, where are we directing our money? Are we doing this for aesthetics? Granted, they did a nice job cleaning it up, okay, and I'm not sure, I don't see any gravestones.
Well, are some of these actually still owned by somebody?
Somebody, the owner, yeah.
Yeah, they're all private.
Someone's paying property tax on that.
Yeah, somebody's paying property taxes on them, yeah.
The public record.
But
They're paying property taxes on them, but, is the cemetery really?
But it's private. That's my point.
Well, I know it's private, I know that, but, and I 100% agree with you. If they're a veteran from anything, then we have a moral obligation.
Well, we have a legal obligation.
Well, legal
by
is
statute.
right, but I mean, but,
If we're buried in Acton. And there is
Interesting.
money.
Almost all set, Charlie?
For that.
there's money put aside for that. That's
Correct.
true.
Almost. So anyway, it doesn't really answer my question, but I got to voice my concern.
And I don't know,
Just remember, we haven't voted.
And I have no problem personally volunteering my time
right.
to maintain certain cemeteries. Only because I think they should look nice and I like the old cemeteries. But I don't think town should be obligated to pay for, the public should be obligated to pay for a private asset.
Right.
I think that's where there may be some confusion, Charlie, because the cemetery committee was just like any other committee or any other organization that came in this last couple of meetings, and they're asking for this to be done. The paperwork that they've gotten or that they've provided us with is to show what cemetery they want to do, whatever tree cutting. One of the ones that was mentioned was the one over by Willie's Ale House.
Yeah.
Okay, and the number of trees that are there, the root system is pushing up, headstones, or whatever the cause
Yeah,
may be.
yeah.
So they're asking the same thing as any other organization that has been before us in the last couple of meetings for a contribution.
And I appreciate that, and I understand that, but I go back to what I said earlier, is that every other organization that I've heard from so far, there is a public benefit to the public funds that we are donating. If it's a private plot, a private cemetery, no one can be interred there other than those who are allowed by the family that owns that, then there's no public benefit. Because it costs money for a plot. You could be interred somewhere, you know? And so, if I have to pay somewhere else, okay, I'm doing this on my own for, you know, private interment, but I can't be interred in a cemetery right in my own town because that's private, but I'm being extorted, and that's a harsh word, but I'm being extorted. I want this much money, public funds, for a private plot of land. I think that's where I have a problem.
And we'll be voting on that donation.
Correct. Oh, no, we will be voting on it.
Yeah,
I agree, but I'm
there's
just.
no public benefit.
I just thought I would get it out there so that everyone understands that these are private property that we're expending public funds on with no public benefit.
But if
with the
it's
exception
veterans-
of the veterans
If
plots.
there's, we've got to define which ones have veterans in it and which
Right,
don't.
right.
That's
Those
it.
ones, you're obligated by law to take care of the veterans plot.
Not the whole
Not
cemetery.
the whole cemetery.
Oh, the plot being the immediate area.
Yeah,
around the ground.
correct.
Okay.
That is your legal obligation
All
by
right.
The
statute.
stone and the,
So who's in charge of the cemetery situation?
well,
It sounds like it's
it's a town committee.
Yeah.
that oversees, you know, some grass cutting and, putting up flags and keeping, you know,
They've-
monuments clean.
It's an
They
appointed
put up-
committee, right?
It's what?
It's an appointed committee.
committee, I
Appointed
think.
Yeah.
They've put up, they've fixed, I know, 1 year, like fences around, these very nice, you know, what you'd expect to see in the 1800s.
Granite, metal pipe.
Metal pipe, kind
rails,
of.
yep.
Yeah, they've done fences, I know that. But a lot of them is tree damage, from what I can figure out. The roots of the trees are knocking over, you know. And I do know that there's one fellow who is, I think he's rather well-known for going over and, you know, you've got your stone, barely, you can barely read it. And he's got the knowledge to do the cleanup and the whatever on it.
Restoration of the stone.
And the restoration of the stone.
Because, you know,
completely,
I scrubbed
which is lovely.
these stones out here that way, no,
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah,
Because when I first came to this town, I was appalled. Well, actually, I didn't even know that there were monuments out there because they were so covered with vegetation.
yeah, exactly.
And I went and I removed some of the vegetation. There was some bureaucratic hurdles to go through to do that. And then I went and I scrubbed over the course of the year, little by little, getting rid of all the lichens so you can actually read the monuments.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how badly they were obscured.
Well, that's-
And
they do
it's
that.
hard, I mean, you can't blame anyone because you're dealing with a volunteer organization, very few people, trying to maintain an awful lot of real estate, an awful lot of stones. So I'm not blaming anyone, I took it upon myself because as a veteran, I was appalled at the condition of public monuments like that. It just was wrong. And I've raked other cemeteries because the private owners didn't, and it just, to me, it was an eyesore, and the person who asked me to do it from the committee thought it needed to be done. No problem, I'll do that. But I get back to allocating public funds for private property. I disagree with that.
Okay, I
If
think
someone wants to volunteer, go for it. I think that's absolutely fabulous and should be commended. But I shouldn't be forced to pay money for someone else's property that I get no benefit from.
So is there any question there, Charlie? Or just-
No, that's it.
So nothing
Just
to
get that off
forward.
my chest.
All right.
Be curious on the vote on that one.
Our next meeting in 2 weeks. I don't know if the selectmen will have the warrant done or not. We've kind of exhausted, all the stuff that we need to do. I think we've got all the information.
And that will be April 24th, guys.
Yeah,
Did you hear anything about the warrant, the, audit?
no,
No?
So we still don't have that.
Well, we, evidently, yeah, we sort of have it, but there were some questions that needed to be answered. And not all of the questions were answered, and hopefully they will be answered, we'll know by Wednesday. Now, that's as clear as mud as we have it.
So once again, I go back to my comparison. It's like pregnancy, you either have it or you don't, you're either pregnant or you're not. You know? We don't have it, in other words.
so in other words, in 2 weeks,
The rabbit will
Yes and no.
die.
if we have the warrant, we can look it over.
Yes, I have it in another package that you handed me last week.
Okay.
And we can take it home or go over some of it that night or whatever the committee wants to do. I know quite often people on the committee want to be able to look at things and not vote on them the night that they're presented.
Yeah, it'd be
Put on the
nice.
spot.
Well, the audit is really important because it goes back to the special town meeting issue. You can't go and do investments if you don't know what you have, and we don't know what we have.
So we have 3 more meetings scheduled to meet the timeline that the town put out. We have another meeting in 2 weeks, and then after that, we go 2 weeks because of,
Election day.
Election Day,
That's our recommendation.
and
And then we got recommendations the 24th, the
Well, we have the
8th,
8th and the 15th
and
for
the
recommendations.
15th.
but I don't know if we'll be giving recommendations on the 24th. That's our next meeting. We haven't seen a warrant yet. That's gonna be up to the committee what we do with that. If we have it. We don't know if we're gonna have it.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thanks for coming in, guys. Thank you, Dan.